I'd like to ask everyone to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For a little bit of a late start, the board is using Chromebooks tonight so that we can have the presentation and information up in front of us. These are the same Chromebooks that our students use, and it is giving us a first-hand experience of keeping us humble on how technologically advanced we are. So we're figuring out some logins and everything. With that, though, can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda as listed?
I'll make that motion.
That's second by Ms. Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda? Thank you. All right, with that, I would like to ask everyone to join us just in a brief moment of silence, just in remembering a former secretary and employee of the district, Joanne Joyce, who passed away this past Wednesday. I want to point out a couple things. First of all, we haven't done this in the past, but we need to, and since there's such a great crowd, we will. In case of an emergency, which is very unlikely, you can exit either of these doors and follow the exit signs for your nearest exit, or out the doors located to our left up here. That covers that part. Also, in case you hear music, there is, I believe, an all-district concert or practice going on in the auditorium, so hopefully that's not a problem, but if it is, we can feel free to shut the doors if needed. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Colwifo for some presentations to the board by staff members.
Yes, we will start off with our Director of Facilities, Mr. Paul Brissett.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk about the maintenance department. I'd like to start off by introducing a couple of people that I work very close with. Vicki Trudeau is the clerical for the maintenance center. She handles all the clerical duties in the department. She takes care of all the many phone calls that come in, takes care of all the needs of anyone that contacts the maintenance center. She also ensures that we have supplies like salt for walk, toilet paper, and paper towels. I'd also like to introduce Rick Bose. Rick Bose is the maintenance mechanic 1 for the district. Rick is very knowledgeable and has been with the district over 36 years. On top of completing maintenance duties, he takes care of the energy management system for the district, provide heating and cooling for events. So the district is comprised of facilities director, 1 typist, 47 custodial workers, 5 maintenance workers, 6 groundsmen, a mailer courier, and we have around 6 active substitute cleaners. Currently, we're maintaining around 849,413 square feet of district building, and we're cleaning around 777,243 square feet. The difference is because of our closed buildings. I want you to understand that we do heat our buildings. The closed buildings, we have to maintain them because they're district-owned property. So we maintain all the safety stuff, the fire alarm systems, fire extinguishers, all that has to be maintained. We have 18 athletic band fields. We have 8 underground tanks. We have 184 acres of district property. We change around 3,016 filters every year district-wide. The high school alone has 152 heat pumps used for heating and cooling. We have 25 boilers district-wide. Every summer, those boilers are disassembled, cleaned, regasketed, and put back together for use in the fall. 73 air handling units, 111 exhaust fans, rooftop exhaust fans, and 185 cabinet and unit heaters district-wide. Custodian duties. We have a lot of talent in this department, and you'll see that as we go through the presentation. Custodians are in charge of the daily cleaning and sanitizing, making sure all the surfaces are clean, stripping, waxing floors, polishing floors, moving equipment, setting up for events and presentations like tonight. Preventive maintenance, they take care of the air filter changes in the buildings, they grease and oil motors, they check belts, they do some light grounds work, and they take care of all the painting in the district. Grounds and maintenance both take care of pest control, but grounds does a lot of the pest control. They take care of all the equipment like our tractors, snow blowers, lawnmowers, they do all the equipment maintenance on that. Take care of all our sports fields and the maintenance on those fields. Of course, snow removal, grounds and lawn maintenance. We maintain the roads, drives, sidewalks, and parking lots. We're quite excited to get some new ones this summer. Trees and shrubs, playground maintenance. That's something that's ongoing. We're always working on the playgrounds and making sure that they're safe for our students. And also the building use. Maintenance duties. Take care of all the HVAC systems, all the air handling units, rooftop units. Take care of all the building repairs, including installation of smart boards, whiteboards, anything new that comes up. Take care of all the equipment, all the floor care equipment, all the equipment we currently have, air compressors, things like that. Do all the electrical, plumbing, communication, fire systems. They build shelves, bookshelves, cabinetry as needed, and they also do a lot of the preventive maintenance in the district. The DEC came out with new regulations for underground tanks. Every facility with underground tanks now has to have a Class A, B, and C operator. So currently I hold the Class A operator certification for the maintenance center, and I have 2 Class B, Henry and Andy Brockway, are Class B operators. Now the transportation center also, because they are a site and they have underground tanks, they also need to have Class A, B, and C operators on their site, and they also have A, B, and C operators. We work pretty close together on those. Pesticide certification. We have two categories. We have structural and rodent, and ornamental and turf. As you can see, we have 3 pesticide applicators in the structural and rodent category, and 1 in the ornamental and turf. We use the least toxic methods possible. We will try anything before we use sprays and everything like that. Everything we use is non-restricted use. Basically, we're down to bee sprays and ant bombs. That's all we use. We do a lot of caulking and mortar and copper stuff and stuff to seal holes and cracks, door thresholds and things like that. Asbestos. I hold a contractor supervisor license for asbestos, and Rick holds a handler license for asbestos. With regulations changing with asbestos, we really don't touch that anymore. Now they're required temps and the regulations are much more stringent. So most of that gets contracted out. We still use a contractor supervisor for my 6-month surveillances, which we'll talk about. I hold the Class C operator's license for water distribution systems, which came in quite beneficial with the lead and water testing we did. Compliance. A lot of compliance in this department. Fire inspections, done by a local code enforcement officer, done every 11 months. Fire extinguisher inspections, the custodial staff does the monthly inspections, and we have a vendor that does the annual 5-year, 6-year, and 12-year. The kitchen fire suppression, the fuel island fire suppression, and the fire alarm inspections are all done by vendors. Quarterly sprinkler inspections, the only building that has a sprinkler is the high school, and that's on our stage. PESH, PESH comes when they want. They just show up and tell us they're going to inspect the buildings, and then they set a schedule. Luckily, we just finished with them this fall. They came in and checked everything went quite well with our PESH inspections. So we should be good for a few years anyway. We have 2 different vendors that do elevator inspections. The requirement for elevator inspections, you have to have an elevator contract inspector, and then you also have a third-party inspector that inspects the elevators. Asbestos surveillance, of course, I do the 6-month surveillance, and the 3-year triennial inspection is done by city BOCES. Stage curtains, the requirement there is they are cleaned and treated every 5 years. Boiler inspections, we have internal and external inspections. The external inspections are done every other year. The interiors are done based on what kind of boiler it is, if it's a steam or hot water boiler. Fuel tank monitoring, we have daily like a meter root system, so we have printouts of those every day. Fuel tank inspections done monthly by our department, and we have a contractor come in and do our yearly inspections for those. Backflow prevention is required yearly. Septic tank and testing, we have a speedy permit for AA Cole because we have an outfall, where you would not have that Hastings because we do not require an outfall at Hastings Valley, only at AA Cole. So every year we have to test that to report to the DEC on those results. And the pesticide application is done in February of every year. Cooling tower is fairly new. Monthly weather in operation, when we open it up in the spring, we have to do bacteriological swipes, and then after every 90 days you do regional testing on those units until we close them down. Carbon dioxide detection is tested weekly, along with emergency lighting monthly. AED inspections, eye wash, shower stations, and ear filters are all done in-house by my staff. We have a vendor that comes in and takes care of our single equipment inspections once a year to make sure that everything's the way it's supposed to be. Our scissors lift is sent to Syracuse to be inspected and certified every year. Building condition survey is completed by architects and engineers, and we're required to do that every 5 years. NYSER is our insurance company, and they come here every year. They inspect all our buildings for safety, and they also inspect our playgrounds for safety. We have monthly playground inspections, but we also have custodians that go to check them daily, pick up garbage, make sure that everything is safe where it's supposed to be. And of course, the lead and water testing now that we have to do every 5 years. Here's a list of our equipment. This is basically the equipment that's on the road. As you can see, we have a nice mix of newer and older equipment. Thank you very much for your support with my needs. You'll see the Chevy buses and the Chevy vans. We do not transport children, but we use those, and we've converted those into maintenance vehicles. We put workbenches in them and devices, so the guys that are working on something, get a stink or something, well, you can work in the truck. Recent mandates, the state come up and said that we had to put carbon monoxide detectors in any area where a student would sleep, anywhere we have gas, and adjacent areas. So we ended up with 147 carbon monoxide detectors in all our buildings. Lead to water, which is 1,357 initial samples for lead to water. Sent them out to make sure they were below the action level. The ones that came back above the action level, we either installed a permanent sign, which you'll see if you look around our buildings, you'll see like all the silcox on the outside of the building and a permanent sign that don't drink the water. Or we did, or if they came back on, we replaced the faucet, replaced the associated plumbing, and replaced the shut-off valves with lead free and retested them. And again, the cooling tower Legionella, that was started recently. And that's reported to a portal to the state. Projects, on to the funner stuff. We relocated the principal's office at Hastings Valley. These things we've done in the last few years. We moved the education center to the high school. Relocated Brennan down Northern Hawk, which worked very well with them sharing the science area down there. Constructed a pavilion at Virgin Elementary. Additional sidewalks at Hastings Valley, that was so that we can make them handicap accessible, make the playground handicap accessible, so that we can wheel children across the building out to the playground. That's a picture today, you'll see shortly. The sidewalk at the bus loop at Hastings Valley, we needed to extend that so we can get the buses up a little further with additional buses this year. And the Miller Hawk Elementary courtyard, I have some pictures of that also. That we're still working on, we're not quite done with that. My third shift is working on that when we don't have any snow. With the addition of staff at Hastings Valley, we needed to add an extension to the parking lot. We added an additional sidewalk and handicapped parking areas in the parking lot at Miller Hawk. Added a baseball field up behind CSI, which is working very well. Moved this food service to the middle school and remodeled the lower level for city to come in this year. Down at the student parking lot, there was no curb cut at the bottom of the parking lot, so we added a curb cut so we can handicap accessibility there. Moved the athletic department to the high school. Of course, we moved Central Story and Media School. And our new district sign after 11. Well, very, very nice. So just so you can see some of the talent that my people have, this, all the vehicles on the left-hand side are the gravel lot extension we put behind Hastings Valley, so staff had another place to park. This is the additional sidewalk report, so that we can get the buses up a little further with the additional buses we did. The Virgin shade structure, that was, the PTO funded this. We did everything, put the poles up, put the trusses on, put the steel on, poured all the concrete, did the site work around it, even assembled and painted the picnic tables that are going underneath it. And we have one very similar to that behind Village Hawk Elementary. They really enjoyed it, they use those a lot. If you've been to Village Hawk, you see the courtyard, the brick in the courtyard was failing. It's a pretty rough shape. So I figured it'd be a good winter project, so we tore that apart this year, and this is the result. We put split face block in to try to dress that up. And hopefully within a few more nights, we should have that completed. This is the sidewalk leading to the playgrounds at Hastings Mallory Elementary. And this is coming out of the building, going to that sidewalk. So now we get wheelchair routes. Now we can bring wheelchairs right out of the building, right up to the top. Hastings Mallory main office, when we moved the principals in the secretarial office over to the other side, you can see the knee wall there. That was a full wall, and that opening was a doorway. So we tore apart the wall, cut the ceiling, put a little half wall in there to make it flow much nicer at Hastings Mallory. This is the new district office in our building for building instruction. Superintendent's office, we've all been there. Business office. This is up behind Central Square Intermediate School. This is the baseball field we installed up there. We installed the backstop and the side wings and cut out the base paths and put in mix and nose and built a mound there. We did a similar field at Virgin Elementary behind the varsity softball field. So now we can have varsity and varsity games on the same site. That's going over very, very well. And of course, new district sign. Thank you very much. I appreciate letting me know about it. Any questions? Thank you.
I'll have one for you, Paul. It's really a chance just to clarify some things. So we've talked about it, I put the question through, Mr. Colbert, to you, but because we've had questions from the community, can you help us understand, so for instance, in some of our capital projects, there's pavement being done at some elementary schools and not at others. Can you just take this opportunity to help us understand why that is based on, whatever they call it?
Sure.
I forget the term right now.
Yeah, you have to do so much work, and more I'm not sure than I do. We have to do so much work in the building to do ancillary projects like the pavement. So you have to do so much building work, and you can only do a percentage of that in the pavement work.
Incidental.
Incidental, right, yeah. So that's why we can't, and our sites need a lot of work. So there's not enough work being done in the building to be able to do blacktop on the whole site. So we're doing pieces of it this time, and then next time we'll have to pick up the second piece. Hopefully we can finish it the next time. We're trying to take the most critical areas first, areas with poor drainage.
So if there was more work, let's say, in the building in Brewerton that needed to get done than a different building, that proportionally affects that blacktop if they're doing it there. They can't jump by those.
Correct. Correct.
Thanks.
Right, the only reason I asked, just for everyone on the board, is because unfortunately, if you're a community member and you don't understand that, then it looks like some elementaries are getting paved and others are getting gravel, and it's purely a result of what we're able to do within the rules around the capital projects.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Very simple question, Paul. Has the, I don't follow up on this a while, has the playground equipment in Cleveland been moved? Or is that
Yes.
still there? It's
Yep.
gone.
It's all done. Yes. They took that.
And have we heard anything on the driver's test? I know it's one we met a while ago, recently, but have we heard anything? Have we heard any good news on that?
Yeah, actually, really good news. So I've got a phone call immediately right after that aired on Channel 9 from the DMV in Albany, and she was 100% agreement. She agreed that what we had said, Andy, myself, and John Pierce, when they interviewed us, was accurate, and they said it was a federal required changes, and it wasn't just state. So they're working on that. But from what I had heard, we should see changes going back to how it was, and then not being as stringent on that.
Yeah, Tim, so our resolution was sent out to a bunch of organizations. The Oswego County School Board Association has sent it to all the districts and asked them to do a similar one. That's up to each board. But I got a call last week from the New York State School Board Association, and they were really appreciative to get a copy of it. They said we're the first district that has done that, and they're going to blast it out and ask basically get a statewide campaign going. But she said also that the, I forget the name right now, but the New York State Pupil Transportation Association, I think. She was in contact with him and the executive director of that, and he's going to use it as well. He said it really helps in their lobbying efforts to have official documents like that. So I know it takes a long time to read. It's a lot of wherefore, therefore, and whereas, but apparently it really does help. So
But it wasn't, that was at the federal level, not the state?
Correct.
it was federal, but New York State's problem is they basically put their New York State cover on the regulations without understanding the implications. So, and they've owned up to that.
So what she said was, she's head of operations in New York State, and she had the feds come in and work with the actual DMV state employees to make sure that the state people weren't grading it harder than it had to be. So that was where I was at in the last conversation.
It's good because the feds are already there. So that's
One final comment I'd like to make, Paul and all your staff, as a board member, as a parent, as a taxpayer, everything. I go to other districts for all my kids, you know, sporting events and music events, everything. It is incredible the difference. And anyone that wants to say anything in a negative light about our facilities, compare it when you're at these other districts. Paul and his staff do an amazing job. I often call him, I teased him when I came in today, he's the MacGyver of Central Square. He does great work, so really appreciate it. And I know the students do as well, so thank you.
Next up, we will have a presentation from the Paul D. Moore school counselors.
Boy, following Paul, that's tough. I had to bring the microphone down a little bit. I want to thank you for the opportunity to update you on what the counselors are doing at Paul D. Moore High School. Before we start, I would like to introduce all of the counselors. My name is Jim Petrola. We have Mitch Brousseau, Elizabeth Sorbello, Tim Wales, Beth Kring, and Michelle Moisen is our school counseling intern who's been with us this year. It's been a great help. Change is not always easy. In an ever-changing world, we have to roll with those changes. We have to adapt. We have to move forward in a positive way. I'd like to give a little bit of a history. In 2010, we had 2 long-standing veterans of the counseling office retire. It was at that time we began to redefine our department. We started to look at ourselves, look at our resources, start to make some moves. Some of that's in response to the fact that the needs of our students are changing. They have many more difficulties to face than we all did when we were younger. Social media is a primary one. We hear about that every day in every way. It really has a detrimental effect on many students. Also, the change in the family structure has had a great impact on our job in working with the students. We've seen many, many cases of students in great emotional distress. Some of our upper end kids who have real high expectations of themselves really struggle with how to manage it all and sometimes fall to things like depression and anxiety. We also see where our more at-risk students, if you will, struggle. They're looking to survive. They're looking to think about their next meal, looking for housing. So we have quite the spectrum of issues that we have to face. Our goal as a counseling department is to become proactive and to address the needs of all of our students, both top end, the at risk, and all the points in between. Some of the impetus of what we're talking about here was based on the lap from the 2012 cohort. One piece of the curriculum that supports our role is the health curriculum and Yoga 101. The concepts integrated into those courses include personal growth, healthy choices, healthy lifestyle. A large part of our role as counselors is to work with students in a one-to-one fashion to assess the student needs, to meet the students where they are and help them get where they want to go. At this point, I'm going to turn over to Liz Sorrell.
Hi. Part of that changeover includes bullet 4, developing a comprehensive school counseling plan. Right now, within our district, over the next year and a half, we have a team working together to align with the ASCA national model. This is a framework that we can use to help us create this comprehensive school counseling plan. First time for the clicker. In working with Mr. King, we've identified 4 immediate areas to target within our department at the high school. These are listed here. As you can see in your packet, we have developed a vision and mission statement for the counseling department. We were excited to partner with Michelle Nelson's visual advertising class to develop a logo that embodies our role. The logo is also in our packet and on the first slide of the presentation. Addressing the academic, social, emotional, and career needs of the students are the main components of the ASCA model. As you can see in the top right corner of this slide, in our profession, our name has changed. School counselor represents a comprehensive approach to addressing student needs. Excuse me, last year we created a pilot survey to get a better understanding of parent and teacher needs. This year, as part of this process, we are excited we have the means to survey our students using the new Chromebooks. And lastly, we have reached out and been afforded the opportunity to visit Shenendehowa High School, which is currently a RAM school within New York State.
Next up, we'd like to talk about the springboard for change, going from the lab to embracing the ASCA model. We are aligning our professional development opportunities with the ASCA model, such as suicide awareness. We participated in a poverty simulation, risk assessment, and cyberbullying by the New York, or by the District Attorney's Office of Oswego County and the New York State Police. It's our intention to use and gather data from surveys that have been sent out recently this week. Additionally, moving forward with ASCA, we've agreed to take on interns with SUNY Oswego. The SUNY Oswego Counseling and Psych Services Department is really up to speed on the ASCA model. And as one of the directors up there said, we can take advantage of free labor because it's something they're learning in classes, and we are able to collaborate with them.
We want to show you guys a few pictures of some things that we did this year to get outside of our offices and to connect a little bit more with students in different ways. Kind of hard to see right here, but we did a presentation by teaming up with an administrator and did a presentation to a math class on financial aid and scholarship information, and it was a mix of juniors and seniors in that class. This picture is a picture of a tabling event that we did with our students. The students really enjoyed coming up to our tables. Of course, we bribed them with some candy. But what they did was they took some time to thank their teachers and support staff that they have in their life, to say thank you and to make a big banner for them. These were just unique ways for us to get out of our offices and to connect a little bit more with the students in different ways.
I'd like to talk about the transition between middle school and high school. There are some major differences between the middle school and the high school. For one, in the high school, we have longer periods, we're on block schedules. There's a limited teaming approach at the high school, and on the middle school, or in the middle school, students are on teams. We have some mixed grade level courses here at the high school. At the middle school, it's mainly the same grade level. Also, the workload and rigor of courses at the high school tends to be higher than the middle school. And developmentally, students go from being the oldest in their building to being the youngest at the high school. Relationships and friendships tend to change during this time, and their level of maturity changes as well. The programs we have in place to address these transitions, a PBM counselor and middle school counselor present to the 8th grade students prior to course selection for the 8th grade choosing 9th grade courses. We have an 8th to 9th grade orientation program for parents and students in February. And we have a freshman walkthrough that's replaced our freshman first program. Students receive their schedules and tour the building prior to Labor Day weekend. In order to bridge the information gap, the counselors at the middle school and the administrators at the middle school put together information regarding at-risk students that is shared with the counselors and the administrators at the high school prior to the start of the school year.
So in your packet, you have the information regarding our course selection process. I just want to take a moment to summarize that for you. It starts off with us first going into a classroom at a grade level. We do a brief presentation to students about the upcoming course selection. We give them a sheet which offers the course opportunities for them. We encourage them to go home, to share that with their parents. We also, of course, email the parents the same sheet that we give out. So hopefully we are engaging and reaching out to the parents and starting that partnership in the course selection process. We then bring students out of the class down to the library computer lab. They're very engaged in that course selection process. They actually have ownership of their course selections. So they're able to go onto SchoolTool, their SchoolTool account. They're able to input the codes for the classes that they select. And if you think about this, if you take it another step further, that's how college course selection is done. So we're kind of giving them a little bit of primer for their future. After that, we then meet with the students one-on-one. And in that individual meeting, we're able to pull up SchoolTool. We're able to take a look at what their course selections are. We talk with them kind of to get an idea about why they're looking to take some of the electives that they're taking, to see where that aligns with some of their goals, the pathways, the career choices that they're having. And then when we're done with that meeting, we print out a copy of the course selection, which they're able to take home to the parents. Sometimes it doesn't get home. We recognize that. So we have a follow-up once we're through with course selection, where our last step is then printing out all of the course selections, mailing them home, giving parents information where if they would like to make some changes to their son or daughter's course selection form, give them the dates and contacting us, and they're able to make changes to the course selection. So that's just a quick summary of our course selection process. SchoolTool, as you know, we're in our second year of SchoolTool this year. SchoolTool really opened up the option and opportunities that we have for students. And it's been a great resource for us. It's also been, I think, a great resource for students because they really, I remember the very second time that we had students into the computer lab. They were very excited. We were finding that they are choosing to take more classes to earn more credits, really trying to have their goals and meet their goals. And for us to be able to see that, I think it's great. I remember Well, the first time when we were doing the freshman, it was one of my freshmen who came in, she's like, I want to take 7.5 credits. And so she knew her schedule and came in prepared and had a good plan to be able to put in place. So we're really able to engage them in this process. We have several opportunities in which students have in which to be able to get information about the different courses. Not only our coursing handbook, which is online, and we give them that information, but we have an opportunity for students to be able to get information about the city CTE and New Visions programs. Usually in the fall of the sophomore year, the city will come here, we bring the 10th graders into the auditorium, we give them, the city gives them a presentation. A couple weeks after that, then any student that is interested, and then bus up, we bus them up to city. We know that we don't catch everybody. We know sometimes students don't want to go, or they go and they see 2 programs, and they'd like to see a third or a fourth program. So we have a follow-up time in the spring for a select group of students who engage us as we're meeting with them, as we're engaging them in the discussions. They'll say, you know what, I'd like to go back to city, or I didn't go the first time, I'd like to go. And I just had that. I had a teacher that emailed me at the end of the day, student wanted to be able to go, I add them to the list. So when we arrange that, then we'll take a second group up. We also have college fairs where we can start connecting what students are doing in the classroom with college and potential careers. There's a college fair at OCC, which is March 15th, and then there'll be one at SUNY Oswego at the end of April. The last part, the last bullet on this slide is engaging families, and I think this is where the new technology has really been wonderful for us, because not only does School Tool allow us to be able to have the students do their own course selection, but School Tool also has a function where we can send an email to either all of the parents that access School Tool email, or we can narrow it down by a grade level. And so we've taken advantage of that in many, many situations over the last 2 years, being able to reach out to parents and really engage them in the process of course selection. We also have City PR. This year, as you know, we've been able to tap into them. They've done a great job. Our website is wonderful now. If you go onto our website, if you go onto the counseling department, we have many links within the counseling department. There's career videos, there's course description book. There's a link to career pathways. And the career pathways information is something that we have sent out to parents through the blast for them to be able to link and making best choices. Lastly, parent presentations just before break. I know myself was the main person who coordinated our incoming 9th grade students and parents for an orientation program, as well as also hosting a parent program, a parent-student program for our juniors as they prepare for senior year and life after high school.
Excuse me, quick question. Do you ever have any idea how many students were represented in that?
I do. I know that we had a great turnout. I did actually go through the numbers, and I did not check it this afternoon. But I know that
it was a decent turnout.
It was a wonderful turnout. We have exceeded what we've done over the last 5 or so years.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I got a question, if I can jump in too, but connect this. So you mentioned the website and the pathways. So last week when I looked at it, it was there, but what I didn't see are the actual courses that are aligned to those pathways. It just talked about jobs that are out there in the real world, but it didn't actually, if a parent was sitting with their student at home, or if the student was just at home, or during one of our study halls was looking at the website, it shows the pathways, but the missing connection was the actual courses that we have here at Central Square that aligned to those pathways.
Right.
Has that changed in the past week?
It has. We had originally given the packet, so in your packet, I believe, is a Career Pathways handout. We had given that to BOCES, to City BOCES, PR. They had put it up, but they had put it up at the very bottom under a related file. So I had communicated with them just before break, and I know I got an email during break, and I checked it today, where now as you go on to that link, it will be at the very top. So what is in your handout there talks about the 16 career clusters, and then we have related PBM courses
Okay, good.
under that.
So if somebody was interested in business, it would be able to go, here are all the business courses at Paul V. Moore that we recommend.
Right.
Okay, great.
Yep, as well as keeping the links to the government information
Sure.
to be able to go out to explore more.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Of course, in order for us to best assist our students and families, we all need to be familiar of the course offerings. So we meet with the department coordinators to any questions that we have about changes in classes. We're involved in the new course proposal process. Counselors attend monthly city BOCES counselor meetings, so we're able to get new information of what's going on for programs at BOCES. And of course, as we've talked about, connecting the courses to the career pathways and really trying to find things that are going to engage students in their career selection. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the videos, but I found a pretty neat video series that I think is really engaging to students.
Mr. Wales, who are the department coordinators? You mentioned, you checked the department coordinators, let you know what courses will be available.
Right, so like the former SASs, so
Okay.
Mrs. Stats in art, Mrs. Dance Technology, Ms. Nelson is now with Ms. Talent retired.
Okay,
So,
all right,
okay.
thank you.
Yep.
And I got a question. Could you describe your one-on-ones? It seems like there's an awful lot of groups, and there's within your pamphlet you talk about where you only meet once. So is there one-on-one from 8th grade to 9th grade? Is there one-on-one? I'm not seeing a lot of one-on-one discussion as far as what their career is going to be in the high school, what their overall career choices or options are going to be. And then we'll hear you talk about it once.
Well, that would be something where the 8th grade counselor meets with them to do the 8th and 9th grade course selection. But when they are in the high school, then Reagan, if I can use you as an example because she's in my caseload, Reagan and I would have met when she did course selection from 9 to 10, and then we would have built upon that. So like I take notes, like sometimes I tell students, I'll write down, I'll ask them every year, what is their career interest? And I write it down, and the next year I bring it up again. And if it's the same thing, great. Sometimes you cross it off and you write something new, and then you do again the same thing between 10 and 11, between 11 and 12. And I've told students before, because they always, sometimes their students have a lot of ideas. And I had a student many years ago who had 11 different things that he was interested in. In his 4 years of high school, he just kept crossing out. When he got to be a senior, we had a good laugh at it, taking a look back at all of the different things that he was interested in. So it builds from year to year.
Yeah, so I haven't seen any statistics, so you keep statistics on how many times you talk to a student within your career high school. Is it the goal to meet with every student at least once, or is it twice, or is it once a quarter? What is the trigger points for you to sit down and talk with the student as far as what their career is going to be and how they're going to walk through high school and have a successful 4 years?
Sure, that's really student-driven. Some students need more conversation. Some students need less conversation. Some students need less conversation or are not necessarily ready for the conversation in 9th and 10th grade. And they might be more ready for that conversation as they get closer to the senior year and closer to graduation. It's really very student-dependent. A student who struggles academically oftentimes maybe disenfranchised with potential careers. So it's a great opportunity to be able to start connecting students, a struggling student, with a career future, because that might give them that little ray of sunshine, a little bit of hope that they may need, and then be able to turn around their academic performance.
Well, Tim, I'm glad that I see on here, on page 2, where you said increase counseling contact with students, because I know our ratio is about 260. It's actually really good in both counties, the ratio of student to counselor. What I would like is more of a set that we're not having a student present, because I disagree with that in regards to, we have some kids that drop out by the time they get to their junior year without having a concrete system in place of saying, we're going to meet with these students. We're going to, because the other ones are meeting some 2 to 3 times with the students that have more of a caseload than we have. So I'm glad to see that we have that on there. That's just one thing that that's the feedback I've gotten from parents and from actual students that have come down, is that they wish there could be more times that we can connect. And I'm not just talking about our at-risk students, I'm talking about our top students that say, you know, I don't want to hear anymore that Central Square doesn't produce Ivy League students. Let's look at the courses, let's look at the level of rigor, and let's have that, because those are our peers. And so they've come down, and I give them credit. I give Jeff King credit for having that dialogue with them and myself and Connie Galvan. And I really feel that if we don't, we have some students like in the classroom that won't raise their hands. They're not gonna, and they're great kids and they have great families, but unless there's a system in place, I know we can say it should really be on them, but there are a lot of really great kids that they struggle with initiating that conversation, and that we have some electives that, like 10, 11 kids in it, when we know through the College and Career Readiness Committee, 2 meetings that we have right now, and talking with the Syracuse University enrollment admissions officers, and from SUNY Oswego, Illinois, we're hearing the same thing, that we look at their schedules, but we're not just looking at their senior year, we want to see when they come in as freshmen, are they very rigorous? And if they know that they've got business, why are we pushing them? You know, make sure that these electives that they're in, we're not waiting that maybe they might not come to us by their junior year, because their parents are just as much our clients as well as that. So I'm glad that I do see that on there. I appreciate that.
Yep, and that's a part of the ASCA model of us being able to do more programming related along the career components in this case. I think yes. So
One last
If I
thing
can
want to give
piggyback there a little bit, I'm going to beat a dead horse a little bit. I'm going to say unequivocally, it should not be student-driven. There should be a schedule put out where each student is getting an opportunity, maybe even a call down, to come down and meet with the counselor at least 2, possibly 3 times during the year. Because like Tom said, you're going to have students, probably a vast majority of students, that aren't going to volunteer to do that. And you're going to miss an opportunity. So the only way you're going to make it happen is to have a schedule and to have a rigorous effort to make that a reality.
So is it the board's expectation that every student in Central Square PV Moore High School will be seen 3 times a year?
I don't know if it's the board's expectation, Tim, I'm just saying, they should make a plan that they need to get in front of every student at least a couple times a year.
But we should tell them what, you said at least twice, I heard 3. So back to Shannon, who went to Shenandoah?
we have not.
Oh, you have not?
We have not. No, we got approval to be able.
Because like whatever model they got in there, all these high accolades,
Yeah.
there's a few reasons for that.
Yep.
Shenandoah is a very large school, but very wealthy school. And I can assure you, I know a ton of people up there. Their interaction with their students is not, I'm going to assure you, 100% with all of them, a lot. I will guarantee that. So I'll be interested to see what you see, hear what you see when you go there, whoever's going. Has anybody heard someone's going to
Clarify that for me, Tim, what are you trying to say? You're saying that Shenandoah does not have the interaction level at the guidance to student level? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying all students don't get seen 2 or 3 times a year at Shenandoah a year. Absolutely.
Shenandoah is a huge school. I don't know how many counselors they have, but in our particular situation here, I think the ratio will allow a much more proactive effort to make that a reality.
I'm not challenging.
That's all I'm saying.
I just want to make sure we give them clear direction on what we want.
So I'm familiar with Shenandoah and the RAMP model, so I'm thrilled that we're headed out there. I guess my other question would be, so RAMP is very much, again, it's district-led, right? If I don't apply to be a RAMP school, then I can't be recognized, even though I have great things going on. So are there thoughts of going outside of that? I mean, ASCA is great, and RAMP is great, but there are great counseling departments out there that aren't RAMP designated. So how do we make sure we're not missing local, comparable benchmarks?
We're looking to follow the ASCA plan and head towards RAMP. It is going to be a long process. We reached out to Shenandoah. I think they said, you know, minimum of 3 years just to get the process going. So we're in half year right now of the drive towards ASCA and a comprehensive school counseling plan. And ASCA is a national model. It's been around for a long time. It's been tested. It is data-driven, and the idea behind it is to reach all students. So it's not to reach the top end and the at-risk, all students, and that's why it's more programming. I think we have the same goal as you. We want to see students more. We really do. This is why we're in this position. We're in this job because we want to meet with students, talk with students, help students. That's why we got into the profession, no doubt about it. We do have a lot of non-counseling tasks that we are assigned. And I think personally, for me, that holds me back from seeing students. Students are always a priority. If there's a crisis, we're in responsive mode all the time. I would say, we talked about it today, about 90% of our time is reactionary. We want to be more proactive with students. We want to have programming that reaches all students. We want to educate students on coping skills and how they can get through, you know, their mental health issues. Instead of reacting to the mental health issue, let's get out in front of the mental health issue. So we're right there with you. We have the same goal as you. We would love to work together with you to accomplish that goal.
So I just want to make sure, because I think it's important for the board to understand this. So if that number is anywhere near accurate, 90% is reactive, so just based on school calendar, so 18 days then is your ability to sit down and meet with kids about proactive planning. And based on your caseload, so we're talking 20 kids a day.
For reacting, is that what you mean?
To be proactive.
To be proactive?
And, yeah, and I'm not so much looking for a response, but the board to understand, if 90% of your time is taken up with that, we have got to look at that, whatever we can do. And my follow-up question is, so you mentioned 6 months in with the ASCA model. Can you help anyone, and I don't know if this is open to Mr. King, anyone, but help the board understand, because in end of 2014, the benchmark was given to look at and move to the ASCA model. So what have we as a district, what has held us back for almost 4 years to get to this point? Because now it feels like we've lost that 3.5 years, right? Yeah, so what can we do to speed it up? What happened that we didn't get there sooner? That's a long
I think
time.
we've been talking about.
Good evening. We know that didn't work for me last time. There's been a lot of programs that it was not until our recent history that I have attempted to put in place for those social emotional connections for our students. Mr. Calabufo, Ms. Galvan, if it wasn't for them, for example, our Red Hawks program still wouldn't be here. I looked at programs, I actually worked on these with Ms. Galvan back when she was at the middle school, because we recognized our students needed more social emotional development, or supports I should say, because they're lacking that development to be successful, or as successful as they could be when they came to PV Moore. The ASCA model, that's something I've also been doing my best to learn about. I've been going through the ASCA trainings with Liz Sorbello, Matt Penrod, and Pam Winchek down from the middle school, and Aaron Phillips is on that committee as well with us. Last year we started looking at the ASCA model and getting things moving along as well. There are a lot of components that with the ASCA model you want to make sure that you're doing them to make sure the dominoes align correctly as compared to redoing work several times. When I first came to the high school, there have been several things that we needed to fix and adjust. I honestly look at you and say, I wish I could have fixed and adjusted all of those within a year or two. I still believe that we're in a process of making sure that we are offering the very best program of all sorts for every student, every day that I'm here, and every day that my staff is here. We have a wonderful staff. We have awesome students. Even the students that some might not think as highly of if they were in another district. I can tell you, every student that walks into my office, I treat the same as if they told me they wanted to go to an Ivy League school, or a student that just told me they OD'd the weekend before. Our needs of our students are changing every day, and I wish I could say that they're changing for the absolute best for that other end. So to truly answer your original question, Mr. Barr, truly say why the ASCA model has been implemented before that, I do not have an exact answer for you, except to say that I've been trying to put programs in place to support our students since the day I walked in here.
So can you, so in 2015, one of the benchmarks that was set was that Sean Finnerty was going to come in and look to model our department after ASCA. So I guess my question is, what was that done? Did he come in, was he asked to come in? And, because I feel like as a board, we own part of this, right? I mean, there's a plan and we need to support that happening. And yet we have a benchmark that was set, it doesn't seem like it's there.
Are you referring to the local assistance plan?
Yeah.
Okay. Within that local assistance plan, please remember that data was inherited before some of our staff was here. We had a lot of turnover. I inherited that data when I took over as the building principal. I don't recall Sean Finnerty actually being written into that lab plan.
Yeah, it is in many places. And again, I'm not looking like anything.
Connections.
But there were two specific dates given as far as, for instance, the Oswego County Counselors Association to host Sean Finnerty, and then we were to have Sean Finnerty study our department in the spring of 2015. So I'm wondering if that happened, and if so, because now as a board member, I need to go back. If we pay Sean Finnerty to study it, if we did, and he didn't deliver something, then I want to make sure we never do that again, right?
I can tell you, I don't recall Sean Finnerty being paid for anything, at least through my office.
Did he come in and study our counseling department?
I know that we had talked to him, we had sit down meetings, but to truly say a study for a revamp? No. Correct.
We started at the beginning conversations of the ASCA model, for us to learn about this model. I think what the biggest changes for this year and why we're 6 months into this process right now is the whole county is participating in this. So all 9 districts in the county are going through this process with Sean Finnerty to move towards a comprehensive school counseling plan towards ASCA.
So, and I just want, so our conversation with Sean Finnerty, that's really this year?
Yes, we did meet with Sean Finnerty before this year.
Not
Not,
revamp.
no.
Not
it
do a
was-
report
it
and all
was-
that stuff.
It was to talk about this process, you know, what it looks like, talk about our skills as counselors.
Forgive my naivety, what does an ASCA model look like? What, I mean, I'm not the brightest knife, but the sharpest knife in our arms. When people say, well, it's gonna be here, what does that look like? What does that mean? I have no idea, because all these programs get, you know, they're here for a couple of years, it's in business, it's in public ed, it's everywhere. It's ASCA today, it'll be hummus tomorrow, it'll be TAPAS the month after. But what is, and I'm not being facetious, what does that look like? How will this board know that we've achieved, I guess, so to speak?
In RAMP, really is the highest level of ASCA that you can reach. You know, that's our golden dream. But ASCA itself, it's meeting the needs of all of our students is the premise behind it. And the 3 pillars are academic, social, emotional, and career. So those 3 areas are the focus. And then on this last slide, I can barely read it, but the triangle here talks about accountability, foundation, management, and delivery. And this is from the ASCA model. So through this process with Sean Finnerty in our group, we are just dissecting this program and adopting, right now we're working on the surveys, so a needs assessment. It's reaching out to students, faculty, to parents, to find out what the needs are so that we can build programs based on what the needs are of our students, parents, and teachers. So that's the foundation. But the delivery, that's a piece of it as well. I think a big piece of this is using data, is analyzing data, and reevaluating the programs each year.
And I think a big part of it too is getting to know the students, which plays into how many times that you meet with them. We had a student come back to us now at Syracuse University. Who was very successful here. And she spoke at the College of Corrections Committee, and she had said she spoke of all the great things in Baltimore. And don't get me wrong, it was great things that are going on. Great teachers, Baltimore. What she said was she touched upon some of the courses and extracurricular and DECA, things that really gave her those skill sets to be successful, to be in the position she's at. But she also mentioned that there were some courses that she took that she wished before, like in the signing up process, where she knew a little bit more about it, because there were other ones that were college-bearing electives that would have been better for her to do, which goes back to something, Tim, that you had said, that the kids seem to want to now get the college-bearing credits. Of course, parents, right? They can graduate from here with an associate degree. It's really like, for some of them, that's a jackpot if that's the pathway. If it's the pathway of SUP, we want to provide that. But I also had a student come in and talk to me and said, I took this one course. I was in the library. I signed up for it. It was very similar to another foundations or course, college course, that was college-bearing. But I didn't really know until after the fact. So this whole process is continuous improvement. It's not putting anybody on the spot and say, it's about what are we doing as a program to constantly improve our product. That's it. There's transparency to anybody that's here or that's going to watch this. We want to make sure that the students come in here and the window of opportunity closes. We have some parents that sit every day with their kids and they open up and say this. We have some parents that don't have to because that's the way that the kids were raised, right? They can do this. But we have a growing number of kids that are good kids. Parents are working lots of jobs. They don't have that time to sit where some parents do. And I just want a system that's set up that we can say, okay, kids come in from 8th grade to 9th grade, what are we doing for that transition? But they take like some type of survey that says, okay, almost like in the military where, what's it, the ASVAB, right? And they take that and says, okay, here are some interests that the students may have. But then it's really looking at those courses, because I've got people, I've had Missy Stats say, God, I could have more kids in my electives if they take these courses. I had people in the business department say, this is right up their alley. So for me, whether, like to Tim's point, whether it's ASCA or it's going to be called this the next year or that year, what is the system that we have in place that when the students come through, we don't have a high school that has record number, like, busting out at the seams like in North Syracuse. We can personalize it. So that's my thing, and that's what I want to be able to say to parents. We're going to have a system set up in place here where your child's going to get the FaceTime, talk about the classes that they want to take. It's going to be able to be seen by the counselor to say, you know what, you're on this pathway. Everything that you just described is this pathway. You want to take this course, and this course. Then we have teachers with full classrooms of these electives as opposed to not having these full classes. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just listening, and I agree.
So does the board going to have to take this on as a goal to get them through? And this is a long-range thing that's been underway for 3.5 years already.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm going to present to the board. I'm going to ask the board if they're willing to now, not this meeting, but put a policy in place that limits one study hall unless gets approval from the assistant superintendent, because there are some cases, if something butts up to something, I don't want to then penalize a student who's doing all the right things but may find themselves in that rare situation to have 2 study halls. I know the teachers want this because then they have more kids in their classroom taking these electives, which is a good thing. And I know for the college and career readiness meeting, I'm hearing all these these admissions officers saying, these students get these broken hearts and they can't figure out why, but when they're going home at 10:30 as a senior, because 75 of ours do, what are we doing to say to them, you know what, at 16 or 17 or 18, you might not be capable of making the best decisions that's going to impact the rest of your life, so we're going to have a system in place that's basically going to be more rigorous for you. So that's not going to be for this one, but that's something that I think, I only see it as a win-win. What parent would want the kid to have 3 study halls, and we have a lot that do right now. 2 study halls.
And I agree, and it's good, but that's tactful. I think what Pat is saying, particularly for next year, process and as a goal. So for instance, our goal number one is support the increase in instructional engagement. Big part of that for next year, I would almost guarantee, is going to be around how do we better support what we're trying to do with guidance, mental health, counseling, all of it.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they're not, as a staff, if you don't have the bandwidth to lead this charge, then you're gonna have, that's gonna have to be addressed if that's gonna be the goal 4 years from now. But if we're gonna be 4 years from now, I might not be here 4 years from now, but from 4 years from now, you're gonna be asking the same questions. Did the consultant come in? Did we pay the consultant? Did we do those things? I'm not convinced that we got a clear direction going
And in
forward.
fairness to these counselors, we don't have a specific person right now that oversees that department and the middle school counselors, which is really one department.
Right.
So in fairness to them, we kind of got two separate islands, and we hope that when we get these kids that come in, so that's something that I'm going to be actually touching upon as we continue when I do my presentation.
Okay.
One last.
I've got a comment. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name. The young lady back there that was speaking a moment ago. You had mentioned that your quote was non-counseling tasks in inordinate number of, you didn't say inordinate, I did, number of tasks. We need to know what those are.
Okay.
And if there's a better way of skinning that cat, so to speak, because if you're telling us that you don't have the bandwidth that's going to be needed to facilitate this effort, then we need to know what the secondary and tertiary collateral duties, as we call them in the Navy and military, are, and can we help you figure out how to maximize effort while minimizing distractions
Thank
to
you.
achieve
You
that
don't
goal?
need that tonight, right? We're talking, we need to know that.
Long term.
Long term, don't interpret, I don't know what's going on here, but, no, I'm just throwing it out here because I think that I see
Understand
that
what
you've
you're-
got a long-term vision, but if you're saying right here now, which you did, they don't have the ability to achieve that with a high level of success, well, then we need to find out what's holding them back. And if you've got collateral duties that may or may not be in your wheelhouse, then we need to know what they are, and hopefully we as a team can figure out how to better realign those tasks. Tom is doing a pretty good job of stealing my thunder, but I'm gonna touch on it one more time, that he hit it. The excessive utilization of study halls during the junior and senior year, that's gotta get taken a very close look at, because that is hindering our performance when we're bringing these kids to the next level. That is not gonna get them into the colleges or into the workforce the way they wanna be. And I've heard too many people talk about, well, I was told to take a study hall instead of XYZ class. That needs to get really a microscopic look at that and see how we can better manage that. And I think that's what Tom was saying earlier. And,
One follow-up comment to the, I made a public statement last meeting that I don't agree with people taking many study halls. However, I will say I had a real-life situation the next day on a mother down at Kinney's and her son, and asked me if I was the gentleman that made that statement the night before. And I said I was. And it goes to show I don't know anything about this topic, but we just want to be cautious. We do have some students in this district that may have huge personal need to take care of Johnny, Jessica, Sally, the siblings, have a job. So to your point of getting approved, I get that, but I was like, I felt really bad.
understand, and that's why I said a microscopic
Right.
view of the guidance
It
piece.
shouldn't be a majority of the students is
Right,
what we're,
right.
if we got 75, it certainly shouldn't be 75.
Yeah, set the policy and then,
The very next day, and that's no joke. I
No,
get
yeah.
that.
Or the other end of that, we have students taking distance learning, and when that is offered in the day, kind of could result in a second study hall, which means we would say, one, that we can't make it so easy where someone can come in and have an 80-minute study hall, and another 80-minute study hall, and then another 80-minute study hall, and there's only one other block that's left in the day.
I think
My point being is I would take direction from you folks. I don't know it as well as I thought I may have. That's what I'm saying.
I think we need to be very
But
careful
that's what
about
these guys
policy.
come in. There's a profession.
There's situations that putting policy like that out there could bite us in the rear end. We may want to make sure we involve the parents, because we are not the parents. Just want to make that clear. We are not here to be parents.
No, I agree, but Mr. Colbufo has already said he's going to come with a proposal, and then we can discuss it and vet it, but we are here to manage the curriculum and the instructional days, so it doesn't supplant the parents, but there are guidelines.
Yeah,
The parents, we
I
set.
would challenge that, 'cause we're the Board of Education. So setting the standard is what we do. I mean,
No, but if in an individual case or a series of cases come up that we have to adjust the given goal, then that's on a case-by-case
We have to
basis.
look at each individual case, but we set a standard.
So just one other comment on the, to Mr. Loy's point, all the tasks, and again, it's not that they're not important, but the reactionary task is important. But in addition, we're coming up to budget time, and so I'm going to put it like Mr. Colarusso, like almost everything goes to him, but it's really important that we don't simply try to reshuffle what's in the deck. So for instance, we're sitting here with Chromebooks that are the students' Chromebooks. But what can we do technology-wise? Because I'll tell you, looking at other districts and some of the things they're able to do, if we don't invest in that for your organization, your department to be able to do that, we can't expect a whole lot different, right? So make sure that we're fully aware of your needs, that it gets bubbled up through whatever the budgetary process is. We got to support that.
And it's also maximizing our resources and staff that we currently have. So it does bother me, and no fault of yours, that when the computer that's entrusted to build the master schedule spits out and says, okay, well, we capped it at 25, so this teacher's going to have 14 kids in this class and 11 in that class, as opposed to looking at that, elementary teachers are probably scratching their heads going, I've got 26 or 27 in my elementary class, 21, 22 sometimes in a kindergarten class. How would that go through? When that would mean possibly that teacher could then be teaching a different elective or something to make us even more rigorous, as opposed to having class loads in some cases with 9 kids in a class. I've observed classes where there was a math class with 8 kids in it. So these are things that we need to look at because it's not happening at the elementaries, in the middle school. We just need to be really efficient, and we don't let a computer spit it out and say, here are all the sections. We need to look at that and say, this is taxpayer money, this is our teachers who are phenomenal. They can be teaching some elective courses that these kids can benefit from. So those are the things that also I see playing into this, just efficiency.
As highlighted by the college preparation council that we were at the other day, and when we had teachers standing in front of us saying that, geez, I've only got a few kids in this class, but it's a great class. And sure enough, some of the students that have taken that class are going, this needs to be mandatory, not, because it is this class. It's a life experience class in some cases. So that goes to what Tom was saying. We need to max utilize these opportunities.
I think with that Hugo 101 class that we have in place with our freshmen right now and looking forward to the career experience for 10th graders really is going to help students make decisions on what courses they want to take in their junior and senior years and connecting them to the pathways for their careers. So I think they're going to come in even more prepared than they are now to pick courses that align with their careers.
And I've been working with the chamber, and there's so many that were alum that want to have a lot more job shadowing opportunities for our students, a lot more internships for our opportunities. So when they graduate, they're in real world experiences, and we want to provide that because the people are in our own community are saying, hey, we want to do this. So,
Just one follow-up to that with the Cuba courses. It's my understanding that during one of those, either the 9th or the upcoming 10th grade one, they take the career, a little quiz similar to the ASVAB, or they were trying to iron that out. Which grade is it?
I think there's going to be one in 9th grade and one in 10th grade.
Okay. And now are those results provided to the guidance department, or is that something that the teachers just share with the students, or?
I think right now the venue to provide that to us,
Is the student itself?
well, we have a program called Naviance, so some of those inventories can be done within the Naviance program. But also I think that the career experience teacher is looking at a different program that will just record the answers online. We can access them for the students when we're sitting down with them one-on-one to see what the results are.
Okay.
so the Naviance program isn't done through counseling, it's through the teacher? No, it's through you
It's a
guys.
combination, actually.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
teachers can use it, we can use it, students use it.
Because I know a lot of counseling departments in other districts, it's the counseling department that really utilize Naviance. Okay, great.
It is for submission of application materials. That's how we use it the most.
But I guess my question is my understanding was it's mandated in that class, right? They have to take it.
The class is basically built on learning what the students' skills and abilities are along with their interests.
Right.
So those inventories are a critical part of those courses.
Okay, but it's only the students that take that, which my understanding now is all students have to take it with very limited exceptions. But I guess that was my concern is, if this information is available, are we using it efficiently?
Right.
And if it's not, you said that you can use it through guidance, and the students that come to guidance, if they want to take that test, if they're not taking that course, or they missed out on taking that course, they can take it, but there's seems a concern about students not taking the initiative to come see you and say those things. So I'm just wondering if this is going to be mandated of all students, it should certainly be something that the guidance department is getting their hands on. And is it something that we should even be considering, at the 8th grade level before they start coming into 9th grade, for instance, some of the P-TECH programs and things like that? I mean, how can we get that information in the right hands so that the students aren't then restricted because they're now in 10th grade or they're not seeing you until they're signing up for 10th grade classes?
Actually, you're spot on. The program that we're looking at is called Zello, and we're looking to have that expand from K-12. So you can almost think of it as an online portfolio as the students progress through each grade level. So as they're exiting as a senior, when you open up the program, you can see the class that they have most interest in and where they have the highest levels of success to help them with their pathways.
I think a big takeaway for me in this is it's not the first time that I'm very happy that counselors told me, was it last year when I had to make a list, or was that this year? Of what are all those things that are that was this year? Yeah, okay. And you created a list. I thought we had approached a lot of those things for you. I want to make sure that we continue to do that because I want you to be able to do what, again, we train you to do. I know in a lot of districts it's the building principal that does the master schedule and it's not fully put on a guidance counselor. And if that's something, I hear what you're saying and I think the board is saying the same thing. We want to look at those things that you have that are preventing you from having that face-to-face time with students, and we want to eliminate those things.
I got one more thing I want to throw out there to you guys, only because you mentioned Naviance. I know many people I work with in other school districts have a parent portal to Naviance versus the student portal. I don't know if there's an additional cost to that, but I'm wondering, I know I don't have access to it, and my daughter does, because I sent her down to get hers early. I guess I'm wondering, is there a way that we can get a parent portal so the parents can be a little more involved in that end of it?
I think we do have access to it right now with no additional cost, to be honest with you. If parents wanted to be able to see that, because I know other schools do it. When I asked, I don't think there was an additional cost, but we can look into that.
And even to piggyback and look into that with respect to this new program Zillow that you mentioned, is that something that, the functionality that has?
Zellow's like a electronic portfolio. It'll replace Career Zone, which is what they use at the middle school level. It doesn't really communicate with the high school software, so they came to me, Michelle Nelson, in the guidance department. They're going to be, we wouldn't necessarily be able to completely replace Naviance because at this point Naviance and the letters of recommendation format and the common app, did I get that right, in transcripts, Zello and Naviance don't talk yet. Zello being a newer product, they do think that down the road they'll be able to do that. Elementary is not exactly ready for it yet, according to Aaron, but again, we're going to be looking at that because the pathways really, if you look at the ASCA model, start at the elementary. So the title and the grant money and some things that I've looked at, I think we're going to be able to fund that. We'll start out 6-12, so it'll talk to each other all the way through. The only thing that it won't have is the components we just said at this point. And then we'll adopt at the elementary level. No more folders, no more little discussions. Everything will be there and accessible. I'm sorry you missed out on it, but well, they had slates when Mr. Patch and I did it. Chalk.
On the pathways topic, Ms. Fishman here was going through and trying to find the pathways, the links, the courses, and it is a multi-step process. My immediate thought was putting a hot button on the home page. It's going to make it easy for parents, easy for students. Hit that button, takes you right to where you want to go. It cuts out those 5 or 6 other intermediary steps, because we had to search for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's not on the counseling, that's just in general, and we have a meeting.
In general.
Yep, we have a meeting with our website that we make people click on like 10 or 15 different things to get to their sites, which is just not acceptable. That's overall in general. Agreed.
This comment was throwing it out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Can we
absolutely.
shortcut it somehow?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and Arena, it just, because when you initially said, someone initially said, you know, it's in the departments, it's right, you go right to our counseling department, and so when you go to the website, there's departments right across the top. If counseling isn't in there, you have to go to Paul D. Moore, and go to go to departments and stuff, drop through, and so with some work, it's certainly accessible, and it was great once I got there, it was very informative, but, you know, as Mr. Loyer said, you know, it might be something, if you want to engage parents and get them involved, you know, having it a little bit easier to find or right on the cover page would be certainly more accessible.
And that'll minimize phone calls to Tom's office.
Liz,
I'll ask you,
thanks.
how does your department identify a struggling student?
I would say there's several ways that they're identified. Sometimes through parents, parent phone call, sometimes through other students, sometimes they're self-identifying, also through teachers, administration. Sometimes it comes up in those meetings for course selection, that you just get underneath the surface and there are things that are holding the students back, you know, social emotional things.
Okay, I just wondered, you know, trying to make sure that some of these kids that really need the extra help are not falling through the cracks.
I mean, we also look at data, like report cards, attendance, those are triggers to check in with students.
And I also get, my last question is, how are they notified about the, going to city for the tours and all that? How are they notified about whether, you know, that's available to them or not?
The presentation in the fall, it's in November every year, city comes to us with representatives and does a presentation to all 10th graders. So if they're in attendance that day, they are at the presentation in the auditorium.
Okay.
We give a handout out at the presentation that is a permission slip and a program selection form, so students select 2 different areas that they're interested in visiting at city, and then can turn a signed permission slip back in to us to go on the field trip, which is in December.
All right, thank you.
Just one question, one comment, sorry, Tim.
No.
Postgraduate surveys, I'm not familiar, have we ever done one as a district?
Not in the 12 years I've been here.
And I guess my question is, as a department, is that something that would interest you? Because it interests me every time I go, I say every time, 2 school board conventions I've been to, there's always a vendor there that talks about it. To me, it's like unbelievably valuable data. So I'm seeing everyone okay. So make your budget job even harder, but we definitely need to.
No, I've been at football games, been at a basketball game where people come up and say, "You're a superintendent." I say, "Yeah." And well, I either didn't make it through or I made it through. I tried a 2-year school out. Man, I really wish I would have tried new divisions in law enforcement or that. Like, I really wish that I would have known that, or carpentry. That was really my thing. I wasn't sitting in a traditional school setting. And if you ask the teachers in the classroom, they'll tell you right now, the kids in the class that really aren't traditional setting. Like, they're just, they need to be under a car. They need to be hands-on. They need to be working. And so that's where I think, and again, it goes back to that question in 8th grade, like, what are the interests that you have? Whatever, like to Tim's point, whatever we're going to call this, whatever they change, the main point of that is identifying these kids earlier on. Yes, you know, maybe that's what their father did was, you know, electrician, or the services. I mean, that's amazing right now. We have so many people that are graduating from 4-year degrees, have no idea what they want to do, have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and then only come to find out that now they're on their own to try to go to some adult program to learn how to be a carpenter. Because the window closes so quick. I've worked in high schools, middle schools. You see the kid as a little kid, and then all of a sudden they're walking the stage, and it closes so quick. So are we doing everything? And you all have way more experience than I do in guidance. I'm not a guidance counselor. Are we doing and can we? It's one of the big things I go back to. There's things on your plate. You could be doing more of these things if we looked at that. That's going to be big because I want to have more face time. I want to have students whether it's a student like Reagan, or it's a student that struggles, to be able to go in, to be able to look at that. It may change, like what have you said, frequently. Tim, I think you said when they went to freshman, it changes. These are the courses that you can be taking. Don't sit in 2 study halls, Johnny. This is a course that you can use. Or BOCES is an opportunity for you. And for some kids that want to go to BOCES that aren't going, they're not taking advantage of it, they need to be back here. And we're looking at that, their attendance and whatnot.
And then the final thing, and again, if you don't, that's fine. It's not like I said. Is anyone in the Custom Department familiar with gamification? I'm guessing Arena probably is. But so that's gamification. It's part of what I do for my organization. I'll just throw out there, right? I don't know if there's any districts out there doing it, but this entire conversation around, whether it's kids or parents not being particularly engaged in the process, this screams for it. So the whole idea is, as an example, if you want, as a student were to complete some tasks, let's say complete a interest profile and then go to the website and find where the videos are and actually view them, tracking, and it automatically assigns badges. It's almost like in a game, you get levels. You're a bronze, you're a career builder, whatever it is. Engagement goes up exponentially when you just give those concepts or those attributes to mundane processes. And again, there's cost and expense. And
no, we already own Schoology and you can do it Schoology.
That's what I wanted to hear. Perfect. So there again, I think look forward next year. I think that's probably a board thing is what can we do to get this technology, which without hopefully any more work on our departments.
You see it all the time. There was just a student that stopped me about a week ago in the hallway, and she said, Foursquare? You guys heard of Foursquare? So it's an app. You have Foursquare, you get badged every place you go. She was like, oh yeah, I got a $200 gift card for the mall because I had the badge for that place. Like, oh my God. So just, again, it's this gamification. It's just getting these badges as you accumulate these things.
Beats the ribbon and trophies we've been giving away for years.
It's true.
Got one more observation. I was at the college fair the other night, and very good spattering of colleges and opportunities. If I can make one recommendation, it would be nice to see probably some higher level schools in the spattering as well, instead of just centered on community colleges and some of the more local ones. We can get an invite from get an invite out in the future to some of the other schools. I know we've got students here, a lot of students here, that would like to see that. They'd like to see something of a private school nature or whatever. And I'm not pointing a finger at any given college. Same broad scope a little bit. Would be, I think, something nice for the kids to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So then he doesn't have to introduce himself. Now, Thomas Palufo, budget presentation.
It's a touchdown.
Budget season. That's thank you. All right. Again, as we talk about, this is a little bit different. This right here is not. Again, I want everyone to know. You've seen things like this in the past. There's been Seversky study. This is not. This actually is all live, based on live birth rate. It's from Forecast 5. It is the very best. Forecast 5 is by far the #1 with analytics. And so we use Forecast 5, and taking a look at this in 2017, that's the 2017-18 year. So where it says 18, that's the 18-19 year, 19, that's the 19-20. So if you take a look at 2017, these are actual numbers. So in 2017, that's this year, in October, first week in October, Beds Day, we had 3,789. Looking at the live birth rate, now I do want to say, and I don't want to mislead people, this is extremely conservative in the fact that we went with a 95%, of our, assuming that 95% of all the babies born in the Central Square District will eventually attend kindergarten when they're of kindergarten age. The reason why I say this is extremely conservative is within the past 5 years, we've had some at 84%, 86%. 96%. So I don't want to be misleading and tell people that that's really accurate because it could be high. So we could say instead of 95%, it could be 90%, 91%. I'm going with 95. Maybe I'm being a little bit more optimistic. But basically, even with a 95% of all kids born in Central Square, 2022, we would drop to 3,391. In all of my budget presentations, I talk about investing in students, investing in staff, not investing in building space. That's one of the reasons why we closed CSI. We didn't need it. We could have kept it. Maybe some people would have liked it. The bottom line is, and it goes back, and it's the same thing with Cleveland Elementary. We're not investing in buildings. We're investing in those kids that walk the stage, which was part of this last presentation. So I think that's important. You take a look at that. So 17, 18, that's the actual number. 3,789. I will tell you right now, we're 62 less than that right now. So Ben's Day was in October. We're dropping. So what are we doing to maintain that? Well, we're fighting a battle. All of Oswego County is dropping. We are still the most rapidly declining school district. Our goal, the board's goal, the teacher's goal, my goal, is to make it so Central Square is a place where students want to come and families want to move into. So with that being said, yes, that's one of the big pushes that we look at the PR. People look at they look at the website. They want to see where they're going to move to. They look at the school district. If you've got kids and you don't look at a school district before you move somewhere, I don't really know if that exists. If it does, it's pretty ignorant of the parent because the school district is extremely important. Unless they already know that they're going to go to a Manly's Pebble Hill or a CBA, things like that. For the most part, these are things that they look at. So that's why we had a big push for technology. That's why we wanted to have devices, to have Wi-Fi and not have parents actually paying for data. And if the kid wanted to use research from their phone, because we all use that as a tool. So we're constantly looking. So I don't want you to look at this and go, oh my God, doom and gloom. That's accurate. Those are the numbers based on 95%. But we are doing everything we can to make it, to keep people here and to attract people. Okay, so as you see, tonight we want to start with the preliminary budget. The next 4 slides are the first 4 slides that the board that you have in your budget packet, and for everybody else, it will go online immediately after tonight. And you will be able to look at all of those. So something I want you to see on the left is 2017-18, on the right 2018-19, and so on the right we have the preliminary look at the 2018-19 budget. Big thing you want to see here is the cap for the tax levy would be at 2.04. Again, we use the state ed numbers from the January, from the governor's executive proposal. We did a presentation, to Tim's point, which it seems like this is deja vu, is because I did a preliminary budget report based on the executive's proposal, and that was back in January, the second board meeting. With the actually going back for a second, with the state, they did the projected, the levy, the cap of 2.04. That's one of my main things. That basically we're at a flat budget at in the bottom corner. That's minus 0.66. As a lot of you recall, we talked about different scenarios, right? So we were saying, okay, if the governor put out a 2% increase, this is what it would look like. A 3% increase and a 4% is ideally what we wanted, what we need to sustain. We know the cost of everything goes up, right? The cost of, we know that teachers and all staff members are on a salary up. You know, it's just in any job that we're going to need more money for them. It's not level where they make one year, they're going to make the next. We know that. We also, I'm in the process right now of negotiating the final contract. So we did 12 contracts because you can't go into the consortium without everybody, all of units going into the consortium. And we're pretty close right now on our non-instructional units to be able to actually do that, which there would be even more savings if we go into the consortium. Even though we went from the retrospective plan to the minimum premium, we still saved 10% right there, which really, really helped us. But again, with a 0.66%, we don't even have a 1% state aid projection. We were hoping for 4. For the first year, we could live with 2, but that's not even 1. These are details that are all in your budget documents. Really here, it's just basically, these are the revenues. It breaks it down even further in your packets that you have in front of you. Looking at this right here, the expenditures. We need a 1.52 increase on revenue to match our expenditures. So that shows it right there. That's what we would need to be able to run and maintain programming. So again, some key points here. We did a big shift from the fringe benefits to salaries as part of our recent negotiating the 12 contracts. Big thing there is, again, our push is to get into the consortium, the healthcare consortium. There are 28 other districts that are in it, and it would really help us do a better job preparing and planning long term. We have done well with our health insurance. We've already, just from going from the retrospective plan to the minimum premium that we're currently on, we've saved a significant amount of money. BOCES services have gone up significantly. And as you know, it's 14%. It shows it right there, third line down, 14.48%. And I'll get into that and why. We will get to the that further presentation, but again, a big thing is with our debt service. So if you take a look, the debt service is decreasing as we pay off our former capital project. So somebody had asked me, they emailed me, I called the parent, a community member, no longer kids in the district, but they said, well, what project are you talking about? So when we said that our debt service dropped off, which is directly connects to our state aid, if we're paying off our debt, well, it's obvious. The state gives us less money in state aid. The capital project, so if any of you are wondering, it was 15 years ago, it was the stadium project. So if anybody else was wondering, I just wanted to be proactive with that. That is now going to be off our books at the end of this year. That is the stadium project from 15 years ago. And so the corresponding building aid will also drop off accordingly. There was another question that I had gotten regarding the pouring rights. And pouring rights is just simply that. It's the pouring of Coca-Cola. And so we got about, I want to say $100,000 more that we had gotten as part of these pouring rights that would have actually been on the taxpayers at the time of that capital project 15 years ago with the stadium. But that's back when they did pouring rights, and they don't do that anymore. But that's when districts threw, or Coca-Cola or Pepsi threw big bucks at districts to be able to do that. That stopped a long time ago. They felt that it wasn't really, I guess they'd rather invest in multi-million-dollar Super Bowl commercials because they stopped doing that. Moving right along. These are the details from the pie chart on the last slide by account code. You have a page for each of these line items, the board members you do, and again, these will be on our website so that anybody can see each one of these line items will have their own actual page. So then here we go. Here's what makes up the numbers. Salary, this is 47%. Benefits, 28%. Who are they? Where are they? So elementary teachers, it breaks it all right down there. The reason why it's blank, because a lot of our special areas are shared, so it's just easier to be able to say, library media specialist 4.67, music 5, PE 4.5, and art 3, because a lot of them, as I said, are shared. But again, that's just a snapshot to be able to see those are our enrollment numbers. We're a lot healthier because we closed CSI and we consolidated that. I know that will go a long way in the future, depending on certain buildings and what certain things, possibly expansion, that the state would never have allowed us before because they said we had so much excess space. The board did a great job in identifying that problem, and then we moved in the right direction. Here are our secondary teachers. At the middle school, we've got 876, and at Paul V. Moore, we have these are students. We don't have 876 teachers. The population, again, on Beds Day, was 876. That's dropped. And at the high school, we have 1,215, and that has also dropped since Beds Day. So Those are the numbers of the enrollment. You can actually just take a quick look, and if you want to go online, you can take a look at that as well to see where they all are at. District-wide teachers, these are our special ed. And as you can see, again, it's kind of just self-explanatory. I don't want to just sit and just read this slide for you, but again, it will be on the website. Total teachers, we have 322.1. And again, there's the breakdown, and it shows you where they're at. Non-instructional supervisors, you can see that right there as well. Nurses and monitors. So you can see where the nurses are. Monitors, I want to be clear, this is not bus monitors, these are hall monitors. We have 6 full-time hall monitors at Paul V. Moore, and we have 3 full-time hall monitors at Central Square Middle School. And then you can see we have an allotment of part-time. They're scattered throughout everywhere except Paul V. Moore. And they do the cafeteria duty and things like that. So here's the teaching assistants. It's a huge category. 92 of them are directly connected with our special ed need. And it happens all the time. I think we have some on the packet today that are asking for approval, because when a student comes into the district and requires a one-to-one, or that has been in our farm system, and we realize that there are significant needs, they have a CSE meeting, and that it is warranted that we have a one-to-one for the student as part of their IEP, that number increases. That is probably the hardest part for any business manager to have to budget for, because we can never put enough in there, because it is constantly growing, and it is required with their IEP. Building clerical, as you see, that's where they are, or 12-month or 10-month. District office clerical, total of 14.5. Our building and grounds. So you heard a little bit about the square footage today from Paul Brissett. They cover a lot of ground. Transportation, 70 drivers, 5 mechanics, 17 monitors. Total of 92. Administrators, as you see, 80 Cole, Brewerton, obviously the principals. We did have correction on there, should say Director of Student Support and Interventions. That's Ms. Jenny Bianco. And it also was Dean of Students. Those were 2 positions that weren't budgeted for from the prior year, but we determined that we definitely had a need for that, obviously with mental health, but also we wanted to be able to have our principal and our assistant principals in classrooms far more, rather than just bogged down with the day-to-day discipline. And so the Dean of Students, Damon Billney, has been doing a fantastic job there. Individual contracts, again, myself, Superintendent of Schools, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Personnel, Executive Director of People Personnel Services. People ask that a lot, that's head of special ed. Executive Director of Elementary Education, School Business Manager, and then the Executive Director of Planning, Development, and Technology. Grant supported salaries. So we actually use, which we're not alone, all schools do, they use their Title I money to be able to fund some salaries. They also use our UPK, which is for our pre-K program, and the IDEA, which is for special ed. Our concern is if those 3 get whacked, and this isn't the first time that the board or any of the visitors that have come here a lot have heard me say, my worry is that we know that Title I and Title II are going to get whacked. Our goal was to be able to build up and actually start to supplement that, so it wouldn't actually be staring down having to make cuts. With that being said, we still draw from Title I for many of those salaries 600, it's actually 9 full-time employees, which was better than what it was before. So our current gap, we've got The top three are to recap of our revenue side. That's the executive budget proposal. We're anticipating that we should be getting some more money back. Hopefully a couple $100,000. Ideally, we would definitely like more than that, but just judging on past history, it may only be that. The 2.4 is the tax levy, and the $1 million in appropriated fund balance. Below that, you see the city services. We have the 2.6. That's 212. It's two different people, not 2.6, but it's one person for the high school and one person for the elementary. And they've been doing a really great job, playing a big role in the rollout of the one-to-one, but it's going to be far more than just with Chromebooks and helping teachers. Anything that has to do with technology. Also, we have the IaaS, which is the infrastructure as a service. We'll be doing that for next year. That's going to save us some significant money. That is at our rate of 76%, correct? 75% from the RIC, and so that comes with all of their equipment. We tried to do the lesser model, which was the $50,000, but when they came and they looked at our equipment, it was so old. Jack Monica was here, he had brought them all around, and they basically said, we can't support that doing a remote service because your technology is so outdated. But rather than have you spend thousands and thousands of dollars constantly updating and getting the best servers and this and that, you can use our servers, which will always be brand new. It will always be the up-to-date, and that also comes with 4 administrators on their end, which is that right there is the model that all districts are getting into because they realize you really can't beat that. Yes, it's $90,000, but again, we get back 76% of that immediately. P-TECH is always growing. Again, this was an initiative by the entire county. It started out $35,000 with, I'm going to say, how many students over total were in the program? 50. Then it became 100, and now it's going to be 150. So it went from originally each district putting in 35,000. Now it's at, I want to say 145,000? About 145,000 each district has to put in. We happen to have more students from Central Square than any of the other districts, but that's because it's not based on our WADA, which is how big your district is, it's based on how they do in the interview process. And so the screening process just actually put more Central Square students through than any other districts based on this very rigorous interview process to actually get into P-TECH. Increase to 50 more CTE slots. So again, it's about pathways. So we don't want to say, no, we're capping it off. We could have some students that say, my dad was an electrician. I know I want to do this. I don't want to go the traditional route. We wanted to be able to provide that opportunity for those students. So we did increase. And then alternate education. We have some students that I firmly don't believe belong in the traditional school setting, whether it's for safety reasons or whatnot. It's just not a fit for them. And again, safety is a huge issue, and we just feel that they can get far more out of a more restrictive, more structured setting than what we can provide here. 1.6 special ed teachers was an increase. We increased a reading teacher. We, as I had said, we created the director of student support and interventions and the dean of students. We felt there was a need. The board agreed that there was a need, and we addressed those needs. So balancing the budget. So hopefully, again, we're going to have an increased foundation aid. That's the part where I was hoping that we get an additional $200,000. I think total in with that right now, it's about $460,000 is what we're getting. I'm hoping bare minimum we get $200,000 at least. I would love more than that because again, we're looking for the 1.55, not the -66%. Possible eliminations due to declining enrollments. That will happen. We had it last year. We just had 26 teacher retirements because we had a retirement incentive, but we were able to actually eliminate 11 positions without cutting staff. That's what you hope to do. The first slide on here, I showed you live birth rates and a dropping enrollment. Well, obviously, we wouldn't keep the same number of staff that we had when we had 5,000 almost in 2009, then we would have, in 2022 at 3,300. So
Sorry. So, question on that. So, in addition to declining enrollment, we have 50 more students going to CTE, right?
Yep.
How many students roughly each year are we having in P-TECH?
It's hit or miss on how they interview.
7 to 12. So once we get there, so another year and a half or whatever it is, we're going to have 45, 50 kids in P-TECH, right? So I mean, there's a lot of things that are impacting this, and it does have to reflect. I'm not happy, and I'm sure I'm going to get some nasty grants even pointing this out, but if we're serious about pathways for kids, we have to adjust to what their pathways are. We can't define the pathway.
Yeah. Well, part of that is this, and maybe I'm wrong in doing this, but there have been programs that are out there right now, and originally it was told to the chiefs, the superintendents in Oswego County, something like, I'll give you a perfect example, the early high school college program, right? And it was through OCC. So they had said it really wasn't going to cost. I think at most it was going to be $200 a kid, if that, right? But then it ended up being a couple $1,000 per kid. So there were districts that are struggling because that's not what we were told. And that's not BOCES's fault by any means, but there was some miscommunication that came from the college, and people didn't budget for that. We sent nobody there. And because my mindset is, we have phenomenal teachers here. I get it. If there's a certain program, let's say heavy machinery, we can't compete with what BOCES has to do, nor we should truly try to be able to put our resources into all of this equipment that has to be constantly updated and whatnot, and the certification for those people running it. So it's best that we send the students that want to do those specific things. But for courses that students could be getting here, I was very reluctant to, I guess you would say, outsource. I guess to send the students there, because I am very aware that we have a declining population, that we have phenomenal teachers here at Central Square. I want to be aware and cognizant of those opportunities at BOCES, but I also want to be very cautious in certain early college, high school courses that would put even less students in our teachers' classes, which then in turn would mean less teachers, especially when those teachers are also teaching some higher level courses here, that I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot in that situation. But I understand to your point. So, school resource officers replace hall monitors. Not all the hall monitors. I did have a conversation with the union president for the hall monitors because I wanted her to know before it was talked about right now. But overall, as I said, we have about 9 full-time hall monitors. It is about $325,000 because there are benefits that come with that. So, in looking at that, we knew that we wanted to have school resource officers come in. And I know some people probably came here today because of safety reasons, so I want to address that right there, is that to me, it's in kind of talking to some board members, it does seem like a win-win because right now, you have school resource officers that are in districts that are old enough to retire. Because you could be 40 years old and be retired because you've got your 20 years in or whatnot. And so what eventually they do is then they retire and they can take this one specific, and it's not a secret because now all the superintendents now are looking into this. So thank God, I was with the board, we were talking about this well before the tragedy in Parkland, Florida, where we wanted to get school resource officers. So myself and board president Andy Martin went over with a Central Square police officer, and he also is one of the patrol officers that leads the security. His name is Officer McCarthy for Liverpool. And we went to this meeting, and we got to have face-to-face time with current SROs that would be very interested in retiring. And then we've also, one other very important person that I left out, went to that trip with us was our mayor, Ken Sherman, because it would be the village that would have to hire the officer, but we would pay them. We could literally pay them $40,000. They could be retired, getting their pension, getting their benefits, and we would not have to pay them any benefits. So in that situation, you would get a school resource officer that would be able to do all of the trainings for, first response, first person, the shooter drills, the whole 9 yards, but with drugs, all the other things that are juuling and all these other things that were popping up that luckily we don't have the major issues like they do in other high schools, but they would be able to lead a lot of that professional development. We had one of the officers that was at this meeting was one that our high school brought here for a professional development day, and the teachers loved it, and they wanted to bring this person back because it was just a wealth of knowledge. So yes, it would be awesome to have somebody that would be, if a tragedy, God forbid, ever were to come our way, that would have somebody that would be armed to be able to take care of that immediately. But it's also for the educational aspects of it, we think is huge. And to get that for actually less than what we're paying for a hall monitor is huge. I'm definitely not devaluing the hall monitors. They do a great job. But again, I've been hired to make sure that we're putting out the most effective program that we're could possibly put out. And so part of that is knowing that the teachers can in fact do hall duty. They do in the middle school. They can at the high school. And with that being said, that would then be able to, we can pull in, whether it's 2, whether it's 3, we want at least 2 school resource officers. But for that price, and have them be up to date on all of those things is a win-win. And it's another layer of protection to be able to have for the school. School counseling restructure. Now with that, we know that there's a retirement at the middle school. So we're contemplating now and looking at the needs that they have and say, okay, could that be better off with all of the issues that we're facing, that we're seeing in the middle school as well, with a social worker? So that's something, it's not definite right now, but we're looking at that as well. The health insurance, the movie consortium would be fantastic for us, but again, if you're wondering why didn't that happen already, all the units, bargaining units, and we have, 13, 14 of them, have to all agree. So some of our units, most of them, their contract wasn't up until the next year, but they again said, well, we want to come to the table to negotiate to go into this. And I think we're doing a really good job. I think that could quite possibly be done next week. Administrative restructure. So with this right here, the current model that we have has an administrative intern every year at the middle school. Myself and Connie spoke with a middle school counselor and said that, well, while that is a great opportunity for our teachers, for our own pipeline, to have a really good administrative intern, because it is the best administrative intern that you can get. That's what I got through Oneida. I was literally hired on as an assistant principal at their high school, which I was there for 4 years. But that first year, it kind of served as my internship. And they kept me on. They hired me outright, after that. So it is a great internship. We're still going to have internships for our teachers that, want to get into administration. But my recommendation to the board is to eliminate that, which the person holding it right now is doing a phenomenal job. She's actually here today, so it's not going to affect her. But to actually, instead of next year, having another one a teacher go into that spot, we want to actually take one of our assistant principals from the high school right now. There's 2 of them. We want to put one of them at the middle school full time. That will be consistency, but it's also going to save us $100,000. Because this year, the person that's the administrative intern at the middle school didn't have a cover lead because her position was a curriculum consultant, and we closed the building. Next year, we're not closing any buildings, so for us to continue that structure would actually require us to have a cover leave for the year, which a cover leave with salary and benefits is $100,000, if not a little bit more than that now. This would eliminate that. So then what would that mean for the high school? We're not adding additional administrators. What that would mean is same number. We would have one of the assistant principals that would still be there. We would have a principal, but we would also look to have an executive principal / director of counseling services, tapping into the need that we just saw, which was being asked by the counselors to say, okay, these are some things, and there are a lot of things. We don't have one person right now that can oversee both of the counseling departments. So this is what I had mentioned before when I had said that I was going to be alluding to, this is it. This would be the position that, again, would still be in the administrative bargaining unit with the principals. Other districts have done this, and they have made an executive principalship. Any one of our current administrators can definitely apply for that, but the only reason why we can't do just an add-on right now to, let's say, our principal position is because it would actually be changing the nature of the position and including overseeing the counseling department in the middle school, which would then require a title change. As I said, I will repeat, any one of our current administrators would be able to go for this position, but again, this would save us significant money and not having the $100,000 cover leave next year, but it would also be able to get some more focus on what we're looking to do to support both counseling departments, which actually is only really one department, but it's just separated from this. So
who would that role report to?
That role would report to Connie Galvan and eventually, obviously myself.
So ultimately, it is eliminating an assistant principal.
No, it's taking the assistant principal. It's eliminating the administrative intern at the middle school every year. There's going to be a different one. It would be actually taking one of our assistant principals from the high school, not eliminating, but that
Put her
person.
down in the middle school, but eliminate one at the high school.
Correct. Which would be still the same number of administrators that we currently have in the high school.
Head count stays.
Head count stays the same, but as we looked at with College and Career Ready, it would definitely go a long way in being able to oversee, which is a major push that we're doing right now with our courses, the alignment, what's going on with CCC. This is a position that it exceeds what the traditional principal role is, and it would really allow us to be able to still have 3 administrators at the high school, same head count, actually 4, because we still have a dean. But it would allow us to be able to actually build the structure around what we're trying to accomplish. So, again, where do we go from there? Obviously, we're still looking at sale of buildings. We get word, occasionally about interested parties for Cleveland. We did lower that money, the price of it down to $279. That's something that we've been getting interest. We've been talking to our realtors at Pyramid that there seems to be a level of interest there. We also get the same thing towards the capital or towards the old district office. And the things that we have on here are just basically more like financing. We're talking about long-term lease arrangements, our capital project. It's just basically being able to utilize our money wiser long-term and having a plan. Some of those leases are like the copying leases, the equipment leases. These are huge leases that will allow us to be able to better use our dollars. So where do we go? Get budget smart. I will tell you on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I and all of the superintendents in Oswego County and Dog County, all the counties, it's lobbying 2 days in Albany, and that's where we will be fighting hard to get more foundation aid for our schools to be able to run the programs that we need. We have so many unfunded mandates that have come through where the state and the federal government say you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, but not giving us any money. So yet they want us to improve our program, but we all know what we feel the governor's push is, and that is to eventually just kind of strangle the individual districts to eventually have to do something like a county-wide school district. And that's why we're trying everything we can in our power to gain our independence as a Central Square School District. But another big push for this, like I said before, it will happen with the vouchers. And students will be given the $14,000 to $18,000 and have a choice of 25 miles that we would have to take them to be able to go. We knew when Betsy DeVos came out and said, this is what my plan is. I don't think that there's many people out there that would disagree, and I've said it multiple times, that the federal government gave more control to local boards, we'd be able to do more great things. Unfortunately, we have to follow, whether it was with food services and whatnot, we have to comply with what state and federal regulations tell us to do. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we're constantly putting out the best program we can. There's a 4th and 5th grade program that we want to create. It's going to be an additional hiring of a gen ed teacher, special ed teacher, and a TA to take 15 of our most struggling 4th and 5th grade students that right now have not had any response to any of the interventions that we've been able to put in place. These are not behavior kids. That's not what this would be about. But again, that's increasing right there. We're looking to add certain things that we know will improve our program, sending more kids that want to go to BOCES. That money has to come from somewhere. And not only that, but we know with the contracts that we just settled right now and the 4%, 3.6, 3.6, we're able to do that based on the money that we saved from the retrospective plan to minimum premium, but also the idea that once we're able to then get all the units in, which hopefully I'll have done by next week, we'll be able to see even more money. Because the goal is to be able to improve our program with less students in the district. As we've seen, we have a dropping enrollment. But what are all the things that we can do right now to address the student needs and to make Central Square, keep Central Square, a pillar in the community? Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Grant writer. What can we do to, again, I don't know if it's a shared service or not, but I think part of our budget gap needs to be a better job of that.
I talked this morning to Roseanne Payne about that. Now, they don't have a specific person on staff, but they kind of outsource that on a needs basis. So that's something we can look into and say, okay, on a needs basis, here's our information. What are some of the things that are out there that we can...
Yeah, and I don't know if it's for you, Marie, whoever, but is there anything that would prevent us as a district from contracting? I mean, that's almost a per diem basis where the grant writer pays for themselves based on the money they bring in. Is there anything that prevents us as a district from doing that?
Something that prevents us if we just haven't had good outcomes for that in the past.
So we did. My first year, and honestly, he didn't get the stuff in on time, and it cost us the $2,800 it was to get into this. And then when I said, well, why you didn't meet the deadline, you shouldn't have had to pay for this. I never got a response back from the person. So it's hit or miss. It's great if you get it, but you got to pay. And if you don't get it, you lose. And some of them, it could be $4,800 to $5,000, and it doesn't guarantee it. And if you do get some of the things that are out there, goes away after a year, then it's expected if you want to keep that going. That's not on the district to fund it. So my nature, my theme is to not put it towards like personnel, because then it becomes one of those unfunded, mandates kind of. You're down that same road. You just created this program. The grant lasted a year. They're done. It's on you now to then employ that person. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 5th, 2018? Oh, sorry, yeah, there's no blue card, sorry. No blue cards. So with that, Mrs. Nicholson made the motion for approving February 5th, second by Ms. Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right, unfinished business. I'll roll through a couple of these and then possibly ask Mr. Colrufo. Policy committee, field trips after third week. Mr. Colrufo is going to report back to us on MOA.
Yeah, I sent that to the Teachers Union president. Is she here right now? Liddell? No? So I sent that out to her, and we're looking to change that because we don't want to kind of force a teacher that wants to do, let's say, go to the diamond mines, but it's after that deadline, but it works right in there. We don't want to say, no, you can't do that now. Currently, they can't because secondary and the elementary have set times. They are doing that anyway, so we actually want to get an MOA that makes it okay for them to do it.
Yep. All right, so that'll stay on until we get that signed MOA, then that can come on. Potential transportation for UPK, any update that you want to provide?
Yeah. So I had Erin, again, she continued to look into this, Aaron, tell me if I'm wrong, but we're the only district that doesn't right now provide for a 4-year-old. So I had asked John Pierce, again, to give me the information that basically says, okay, but what does that actually look like? Maybe he's gotten that to you. Does that mean that it is complete? Because we know that the pickup and the drop-off at the end of the day, well, we can do that because that's mixed into our regular runs. But how do they do it for the drive home, you picking their children up from the AM, and the parents bringing to the midday PM?
So Oswego is the only school in the county that does just the morning and afternoon, beginning of the day, end of the day drop-off. Every other district transports both ways. So they pick the kids up in the morning, they drive them home after the morning session, they pick them up in the afternoon, and then drive them home in the afternoon. When I asked how it's covered, they said it's in their general budget, or however they do that. So, but we are the only district who does not transport at all.
Yeah, that's fine. So that's the update. You're going to continue down the path and come back with a recommendation and presentation for it. All right. I'm recommending, unless you argue otherwise, the trap shooting club, I think, can come off here. I think that's the paperwork has been given.
And I saw Mr. Schaefer. Yeah, the paperwork has been given to them to be able to have that as their club, because if it's their club and it's not the school club, there's not the hoops that they have to jump through that they would have to do with the regular club, which Reagan could then mention that, because anybody that wants to be a club, that school club, there's a whole process. The last one was robotics. It took about a year to get that in. If the goal was to have this up and running as a club through the North Sportsman Club, that's the club, right? North Sportsman Club, that if it was going to be them taking care of this, then it wouldn't involve all those other procedures to do, which I had let Mr. Schaefer know that he's well aware.
Is that going to fly under the Paul B. Moore, the Central Square name as a banner, or are we totally out of it?
Well, that is a good question. Insurance-wise, it's not on us because it's not on ours. Do they want to use the Central Square name to be able to go and do that? We have Red Hawk Basketball right now that does. It's not affiliated with us. It's not affiliated with the district, but he provided us with a flyer that we made sure, and with copies and everything. So we will do a great job publicizing that. We know, I gotta assume, and again, I can be told if I'm wrong, but a lot of the students that are current on the rifle team would be the ones that would actually be participating in this. I don't see that it would be an issue. With that, it's going to literally cost them no money at all.
Yeah, my only question was, when they show
I'm not
that,
trying to be rude, but did we go by community open forum?
No, there were
Did not have that?
no blue cards were filled out. Blue cards have to be filled out in order to speak.
That's what?
A blue card has to be filled out in order to speak. There were no blue cards submitted to our district clerk.
I see. Well, my request was concerning the security of your school.
And the board will be discussing that during our open forum tonight.
That's nice. I'm glad to hear that. If you have a so-called police officer that's going to be in charge of security in the school, I hope it's a lot better than it's been. Because I could walk through this school tomorrow and nobody would say a word to me.
And I appreciate your concern, but we have to stick on top of
Go ahead and
discuss
have your
that.
discussion amongst yourselves.
We will continue, Mr. Lloyd.
I don't even recall what I was saying.
Will it fly under our banner?
Yeah, I think he was asking whether it's going to be the Central Square.
Are they going to show up someplace, say, hey, we're from Central Square, or are they going to be where from North Shore?
No, Central Square. Because Central Square is where? It's not just the school. Right. But yes, they'll show up in it'll be Central Square.
Stop there. Just stop there.
I think that guy just went to buy us a banner.
It will be Central Square. Because I want everyone to understand, it is not on our insurance. If it was actual Central Square, they would have to go through the process that the student government has to do, which would put him out a year. So they can have a banner, it can say Central Square Red Hawks,
Like, he's getting in competition and stuff, right? That's what it is that correct?
Yeah, because teams from different schools across the state will be in
But he
Bridgeport.
confirmed for us that they're not part, like Skinny Apples, he said
Yeah,
they're not part of
they're
this.
clubs of some sort, and we're going down the right path, but they do represent Skinny Atlas, the school district, they do represent, you know.
Yeah, they're definitely represented, absolutely.
District contributions to clubs and activities, I think we've gotten the music portion, I think the other portions are, yep.
We got athletics today.
Okay, thanks, yeah, I haven't seen it today. Okay, so we'll absorb that, and then next meeting we can decide if it comes off or not.
And that is the most updated you give this commission. So it's not the only one, it's all been updated.
Can we take the policy on cell phones out too?
Oh, thank you, I skipped that one. Policy on cell phone, no, can't take it off other than unless, I don't know if it's tonight or at a future meeting, the policy committee, I don't know if they want to present back on it or what. But
I will at the next meeting, we had to finish ours today, so we didn't get to that one, but
no problem.
I'll go back to what we did.
Thank you. And school resource officers, I think we're covered. And again, we're going to discuss school safety here in the open forum, so.
Next, our safety patrol officer.
So Pearl, can you change that to safety patrol officer in future meetings? With that, we come to the board member reports. I'm going to start with the one that's listed, which is timeline for the
Excuse me,
budget.
one second. We're discussing school resource tonight, or?
We will in the general topic of school safety and procedures, yeah, definitely. So the timeline for the budget vote, everyone has a copy of this in their packet. It's important. Pearl is responsible for almost everything on here. And the one date that's not listed that's important for community and the board to understand is March 23rd is when nominating petitions are available. And then it's everything else is listed on there, but they'll be available March 23rd.
I'd like to make a recommendation, I guess, if, I don't know what we're planning on doing, but in the years past, one of my illustrious colleagues wanted to make sure people had to come in and get those.
So I'll preempt you and tell you, this is one of those areas where there's no rules and regs, but I've already instructed Pearl. Someone will just be able to click on the website and download it. They can come in and get it if they want, but ease of getting it is 100%. It's them, Pearl's responsibility. There's some verification, and we need to make sure that goes through, but that happens no matter what the process is. So, that being said, more
Just
board.
get rid of.
Right.
We didn't want that to happen the last couple of years, if everybody recollects. I will stand by my comment that I think we should make people come together.
And just what's the reason?
The reason was, last 2 years was, if they can't make the effort to walk in the district off and get it, doesn't that give you a sense that they're not going to be able to do a board member's job? That was at least the last 2 years. And I'm not saying whether I agreed with it or I didn't agree with it, but it was a lengthy discussion. And this year I happen to agree with it.
Yeah, and just one of those things that it is not necessarily, frankly, a policy or an area that the board decides. So we can do one of a couple things, but really we can throw it on the backs of Pearl and Mr. Colavupo. We can have a discussion around it. I'm in favor of ease of use, but I hear what you're saying too. My overarching is simply that I think the more we can do to encourage people to begin the process, because let's face it, the number that are picked up versus the number that are turned in, there's quite a delta. So I think people still go through the process and figure out if they want to do it, how they do it, all that.
So we'll leave that to the town.
Yeah. All right, as you can see, the Chromebooks are out tonight, so this is, my question for the board does not need to be answered tonight, but I've talked to Pearl about this. The idea would be, can we get to a point where Pearl can stop doing the amount of printing that she's doing? And so the question is the board open to, over however long this takes, figuring out if these can replace all of this printed document so that we can take that off her plate? Okay, so we'll work towards that. There's no, I don't want to set a timeline because like Irena was talking before the meeting, there's some things we need to figure out that make more sense. Right now we're using student ones. but she has to make sure they go in the exact slot at the end of the day, so that tomorrow morning that student gets theirs. And so because we have some flexibility built in the numbers that we got, it may just be that we're assigned one, but it will give her time to figure that process out.
And if you would like any training, let me know. So, you know, we can use one of our tech coaches, or I can do some training with you around use of Google Docs and how that would work.
Perfect. Thank you. I will say I had just a great mental moment because about halfway through the second presentation, I finally touched the screen and realized that I could just scroll. So, it's just really, really good. I didn't realize we invested in some fine material, so that's great. All right.
Well, we invested for our students.
That's true. That's true. And at the next board meeting, just let the board know, so pros, you can put this on unfinished business, but I'd like us to discuss a board recognition program. So I just mentioned to Mr. Colufo, there are other districts that I think do a really spectacular job of recognizing hiring of employees, benchmarks of years of service, retirement, tenure, a lot of areas. I think frankly we need to do more to recognize our staff, so I'd like us to talk about it in future meetings.
Involves cake.
What's that?
Involves cake.
It involves cake. All right, any other open discussion topics, realizing that we will be discussing school safety resource officers, but anything outside of that topic?
I have one I'd like to get on the agenda to work on the Chromebook pick up and drop off. I've had several parents and students come to me, older students, where they're in the gymnasium, let's say, and their drop-off point is the opposite of the building, and they get held late in gym, can't make it out to the bus in time, or rushed to get to the bus.
So is that something that we need to put on the agenda, or can Mr. Colufo just work on that?
I want the staff to know it's a possible issue that's out there, and I know you guys are probably already aware of working on it, but you know, I do have people coming to me, especially the older students. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, I've had one of them ask if they can buy their own and bring it to school, and I said they'd have to come talk to you guys first, but just because they don't want to have to deal with that. So,
You want to jump in?
Sure. So I worked with each building to really figure out what their deployment was going to be, because every building's got a different schedule and a different way of handling things. The higher up you go in the grades, the more complicated it gets, right? So in the high school, when you have every other day block scheduling and nothing matches, you don't start your day or end your day in the same place 2 days in a row, it gets really messy.
Yeah.
So we looked at all different kinds of models, we tried all different kinds of things, and we finally decided we don't have a lot more time, we've got to get them out there. So we got them out there, they came up with a deployment plan. They have from now until the end of the school year really to test this out. At the end of the school year, we're going to reevaluate this whole thing, and the whole thing could look very different come September. But at least they will have tried this. And right now they're working out all kinds of bugs, like we have some special classrooms where we've removed them and put them actually in those classrooms with those students. So we've been tweaking all that deployment as we go. As I see the problems arising, we have a conversation and we make changes to it. So yes, send them my way.
Okay, the other thing I can say about that is waiting until next fall, when we've got final exams and things that these kids are going to be going through, adding that extra stress may not be our best plan.
Right, but here's the thing. Do you ever like go to a place where they had like the bike thing? You can borrow the bike and leave it wherever you want, and then you can get a different bike, and those bikes are all getting stolen. And so it's great that City of Syracuse is going to try that, but so many people are like, the research that shows it doesn't work in the other places that do that, they're stealing them. So I get it. We want to be able to make it, best for them, so that's why we're looking at how other districts are doing it. But at the end of the day, we didn't want to just be like, all right, we're going to have this commons area, and you can just leave it in the commons area, because while we have phenomenal students, we have a very small percentage that seem to be our constant repeat offenders on things, and we didn't want to make it really easy for somebody to go and grab 15 Chromebooks of somebody else and then disappear. So I hear what you're saying. It's this process of trying to figure out what is the best way to be able to let them go, get it in that spot to charge up the next time, that is doable, because it's so different at the high school of where they're going to put the things. So I love feedback and talking to students on different things because some students have some great ideas. So we're doing that right now. And what are the things that they think are the optimal way to store them? But I knew it was going to be an issue, grant how the schedule is. We just didn't want to make it, we were making it easy for a couple of the kids to take it.
Oh, no, absolutely. I guess I'm just thinking maybe if we could accelerate things for the students a little bit if possible. I'm just thinking around final exam time and stuff. You know, some of the lunches are right at the end of the day. Is there a way that we can allow them to, you know, if they're in lunch that period, to be able to sneak out 2-3 minutes early? I'm not talking, you know, half an hour, okay? I'm talking 2-3 minutes. Give them that time it takes to cross the building, basically. You know, that's all I'm looking for, just because, you know, for the kids, they're going to have to learn to deal with stress, but to throw that on top of everything else, you know what I mean?
No, I agree with you, and I got to tell you, I'm sick and tired of penalizing the really good kids that don't screw up, because the tiny amount of kids that, quite frankly, I'm at the fed up point. These are the ones that the teachers and the administrators have gone above and beyond to give them every opportunity. We're doing everything we can for these kids, but at the end of the day, if they're not willing to do it, if their parents aren't doing what they need to do on their end, I don't want to punish those good kids that can responsibly leave 5 minutes early from lunch because they're going to be on some campus or whatever they're going to be doing. And I'm getting tired of changing and building a structure and a program based on the tiny amount of people that are constantly doing it. But I hear what you're saying.
Tom, it just came, I hadn't thought about this, but down the road, maybe starting next year, is there any way we could look at something? Everybody's laughing at me. I haven't even said anything. You know, we allow the top 50 kids or whatever to get drivers' parking spots. Maybe with, now this may sound like a student with a B average doesn't steal. I know that's not true, but generally speaking, I'm talking now. A way to have the top, 150 kids in a class, take them home.
But I would like this, is not even the top. I'd like to go behavior referrals. You got a kid who's not in trouble at all. Something great that the Chamber of Commerce has started, all of our local people, we're going to be having a drawing that it's all the prizes come from the local businesses to reward those kids. Their names are drawn at Paul D. Moore in the middle school that had no referrals, and that their name is in this hat to be able to win some really nice prizes, whether it's night at the restaurant with their whole family or things like this, but they want to recognize that, and it's going by great behavior. So I do like your idea and the fact that why don't we're always punishing the kids. Well, let's reward those kids that are acting that way. That's a great idea, Tim.
I don't know what the answer is, but something like that.
Yep.
And for the record, my kids are out of school, so it's not about my kid. I want to clarify. They'll be out. So we can do this.
Anything else before we discuss school safety?
Can we touch on this for a minute? I know you said
This
it's
being
unfinished business. All the financial reports we received from engineering safety, I got hold of them. I want to know what we're doing. I know you brought up a couple times, what's fair is fair, but how are we determining it? I think before looking at this, because when I look at the music department's budget compared to the middle school art club, you're completely, on different ends of the spectrum. So how will we?
What I'd like to do is I only just received the athletic part of it about 2 hours before the meeting. It's when I had Pearl send it to you guys. I want you guys to have more time to look at that, and then we can have this discussion at the next board meeting to give you guys more time.
Do we have something like a system we use now on how much each program is?
Can I make one comment, guys? The list of clubs, there's like 38 of them. Yes, they are not part of our budget. They do their own thing. So if there's a club that only has $40, it's because they've only fundraised for $40 because that's all they want for what they're going to do. So that entire list of clubs is not part of the budget. The budget is only supporting the athletic program and the music program. So don't get,
So just these
yes,
ones,
yes,
athletic.
yes.
But
The
right
clubs are student driven, and it's all, what they're doing there is what they've decided to do and what they've decided to fundraise for.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, I'm not asking to have a discussion on what's fair is fair, but do we have anything in place
done it based on need. We've never discriminated against, back, I don't know how many years ago, we had pay to play, but that's not what we do. We don't do that here. And it's based on need and whatever the programs need. I mean, we look at, like, you're not gonna put 5 kids on a team somewhere and then fund, for all of that, but.
Right, and I guess, and that's all, I just want to make sure as we go forward looking at this, and then we have it for further discussion, because it's not all going to be equal.
No, it isn't. It's not
monetary.
equal.
It's not equal at all.
No.
So it's based on need. So we have every sport that section, whatever you announced, 3 has, unless we don't have enough people to participate in. Freshman sport teams were basically technically eliminated, like maybe was it 6 or 7 years ago now. But otherwise we have all the teams, unless we can't support the teams by not participating. So then we fund them. If anything new is needed, as far as coaching positions and that type of stuff based on the numbers, it's brought to you and you fund it. And the same thing basically happens to a big part with music. New programs start, the winter guard, the different pieces. If there's enough students and it's going to happen, we fund it. And then we bring you the new music positions and you add them to the budgets. So it's not a per pupil allotment, it's based on the need and the participation.
So there is a process then by which somebody requests a budget amount for a team, correct? Or
Not necessarily a budget amount for the team, but if they need more people, it's pretty much the biggest part of all of those you'll see is the people, it's the coaching and the salaries. If they need more, they bring it to the superintendent's attention.
okay.
We heard a lot of times a couple of years ago, fair doesn't always mean equal.
Good? All right, with that, let's begin a conversation on school safety, including special patrol officers.
Yes.
Right?
Am I correct with that non-civil service title?
Special patrol.
Safety patrol officer?
I think it was safety patrol officer,
Correct.
which is the civil service title that a police organization can hire. That's not a title that the school can hire.
No, it's going to be, it really essentially has to be a retired or current that would retire, because who's going to do it without any benefits for that? Only somebody that is going to retire and can draw the benefits from the police.
So Tom, your concept is that these are employees of the district or employees of the?
Employees of the Central Square Police Department.
So, but 100% all their time here, the district and their directors.
Right. So I was talking to a school district that had SPOs, you just said, school patrol officers?
School resource, probably an SRO you're talking about.
There's SROs, there's SSOs, school safety officers.
Yeah.
Basically, this school district, I just wanted to throw this out, and I don't know, so they have 6 buildings. They have 1 school resource officer, full-time, and then they have 5 SSOs. Those 5 happen to be in this district, 5 retired state troopers. They're paid basically a per diem wage. They can make up to X amount a year.
30
They get up to 30 grand, but they get huge coverage. So I don't know the legal term between SPOs, SROs, and SSOs. I don't know that. I haven't been able to dig
So
into that.
to have an SRO, legit SRO right now, I know many districts that have that, it's about $150,000 a person, because they're paying their salary and they're paying all their benefits as well. Most of them, if given the opportunity, were starting over, and they wouldn't be kind of like having a bad relationship with their local police department and saying, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. Hey, where can we find the same service for 40 grand?
Just so I'm clear, these all work for the police department.
Yeah, so let's say, I'll give a different one than I was just talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But let's say ESM. So those are Manly's police officers, right? So, but they're in their schools 10 months out of the year. When they're not, like on the weekends and stuff, they're patrolling the streets, things like that. You can go that route, or you can do what Phoenix does, and theirs was set up again by Officer McCarthy. So he went to Phoenix School District, and he worked with the Phoenix Police Department and said, okay. They had some same exact thing. They advertised it. they posted, and they got, like one of them I think was from Oswego Sheriff, okay? So they retired, they were of age, they retired, they went there, they got their full benefits and everything, because this is a non-competitive, so you don't have to take off the list, you can interview. And you can pay them as high as you want to pay them, because it doesn't impact them. If you don't use this specific title of, I believe, Safety Patrol Officer, and you use something else, it is two things. One, it's competitive, so you got to take off that list whether you want that person or not. Because remember, you could get a trooper, and maybe this might get you pulled over on the way home, that you would not want in the building. That has more of that militant, not making those connections. It's a different beast. Some troopers would be good at it, so I don't want to, I'm trying to back out. So watch me. So, but with that respect, this position is great because there is no cap on them. We would be able to competitively get some really good current school resource officers that can say, I can retire now from being a school resource officer. Let's say from the Manly Police Department or
Being
whatever.
a police officer.
Yes.
School resource.
Yes, that's a legit police officer. They can retire, get all their benefits, get their pension, and now get paid $40,000 from Central Square Police Department, which is kind of funneled legally through us because we're contracting them and we have them for the 10 months.
Who's got control of the hiring?
So it would be the mayor, myself, and I would want to have some board members on a committee as part of that. Ken completely understands the way that we could write it in. Let's say Ken's not there at the end of his term, but it would have to get both people to agree to change something that's in it. So then they couldn't say, no, we're pulling them back. No. The way that it's written, and this isn't anything that's new. Officer McCarthy has done this for other districts, and he's actually the one that certifies all actual school resource officers across New York State. So to have him do this is wonderful for us. And we can get top-notch, highly qualified and trained, current school resource officer for $40,000 as a safety patrol officer, doing the exact same things. He would certify them as a school resource officer. It's a 1-week course. So they would have all the certifications of that, except that's the one position. Yep, they would carry a weapon.
And Central Square Police Department would be responsible for all training and certifications.
Absolutely.
Here on 2-4.
Absolutely.
And they would be able to provide the same type of training, like ongoing training with respect to school safety officers.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And there would be no benefits.
It would be no benefits, because they're already getting benefits, correct, just a salary.
Okay.
Are we planning on having any of these folks come in and talk to us?
We can. I would actually love it to have Officer McCarthy come in
We should.
to a board meeting. He said I would come to anyone. I just didn't want to have him come to this one. I want to be able to talk to you guys
No
first.
doubt. No, it's a good first.
So the Central Square uniform, police officer uniforms that would be wearing?
He'd be wearing a police officer's uniform, because he would be in the Central Village. Yeah.
But he wouldn't necessarily have been from Central Square Police Department. He could have been from any department before he.
Well, it wouldn't be, because there's no full-time in the department. So it would be interviewing, and again, it's a non-competitive position, so literally we can get the best that are out there right now. They don't have to come from a list that we get from civil service. And Ken Sherman is the mayor right now, is completely on board with what Andy and I were talking about, with making sure that we got somebody highly qualified, but it would really fit in a school setting. And it would be really good providing professional development to our staff. We don't want to have somebody come in that doesn't have that communication skills to be able to work with teachers and say, okay, now we're running this drill, this shelter-in-place drill, this and this, that wouldn't be really good at doing that. So we want to be able to get the very best that's out there.
Go ahead. And it's only someone that can retire from the police force? It does not take into account military police or anything like that, or does it?
That is a great question. I can ask. Really, the whole point reason why they say it's a retired police officer is because they're not going to be needing the benefits.
Well, right, but neither would have been a 20-year.
Yeah, but I think, I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm pretty sure that the requirement is a former police, because that meets the requirements to allow a carry, to have the weapon on school
On school
property.
grounds, that's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise there's major paperwork that needs to
Yeah,
happen.
Why don't I just schedule Officer McCarthy, if he's available, to come to our next board meeting?
Because it's a big topic, that's what I don't have to tell you.
And although-
It's a huge topic, it's an emotional topic for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
people are out there wondering what we're doing. My only concern about, I would love to have the district have full control of the hiring, and I'll say it, and I'll know I'll get 1,000 emails tonight, but anytime you put it in the government's hands, it gets political, and I would hate to see us get a political appointee, for the lack of a better term.
We
So-
would both have to agree. I don't know how that
Okay.
they would become such.
That's all gonna be worked out, but that is my personal.
I hear you.
Absolutely. Just a personal caution that I would be concerned about.
I agree, and I think in all the conversations that I've had with Ken Sherman and with Andy Martin here, that Ken is really on board, understanding that they're going to be here, it's going to be the school need, and our voice and who we want is going to be
To
really
Tim's point, that was my first question when
Yeah.
the topic came up and I was able to attend this, I guess, the Central New York Safety School Patrol Officer meeting, which was great. I mean, it was eye-opening to hear these people from all the districts. And it is, as you would imagine, so much more than we can comprehend what they're doing. It's an amazing role. But my first question to Ken was, Ken, you're great, but the next person may have no interest. And so that, it is, to your point, all about how the contract and the agreement is written. So yeah, rushing it is not.
And I can provide all of you with the actual contract that Officer McCarthy had created for Phoenix.
And we really gotta talk about it, and I'm hoping there's gonna be federal monies coming down, but we've got, what, 7 buildings?
Yeah, because that's gonna be my, is there a car?
Well, yeah.
Is there schools assigned, what's gonna be?
So originally, what my thought was, that what it was originally was going to be 2. Again, that was well before the school shooting and the heightened sense of awareness. On that was several months ago, it was going to be, one was going to be the middle school, one was going to be in the high school, and that if either there was a situation in elementary, depending on which elementary it was, if it was on this side, high school person would go. The more I started thinking about that, and I didn't want to have this building without somebody, if we had 3, we would have one that was always be at the middle school, one would always be at the high school, and normally where it happens the most, like where there are squabbles at the elementary or things over custody issues, where you would definitely want to have somebody there, far more than at the high school and middle school. Now, with that being said, I'm sure the people in the audience are saying, well, that first original Sandyville was an elementary. So what are we doing to take that consideration? Again, it's at a price less than a hall monitor at $40,000, and with all the training that they have in that.
You could, I mean, you could also, not that they're always staffed, but you could also take into account the response time to the various elementary buildings that we have as well. I mean, Hastings is right across, I mean, very close to the trooper barracks, down at Hastings.
Sure.
And so, not saying they shouldn't have one, but if there was a floater, as you're talking about,
And I will say this, our response time at any of our buildings is amazing. When Jeff King or one of his assistant principals or Mr. Penrod or the elementary calls a trooper, they're there in like just a few minutes. What we wanted to do in talking to a lot of these school resource officers, if God forbid, like you look at something like Parkland, now we all know that there was an actual armed person that didn't go in the building, but if there was something that they operate as the eyes and ears, that they're already in there. And we know, and I don't want to say anything right now that we know areas we want to improve upon, because the last thing I want to do when this gets aired live, not aired live, but when it goes on our website, our recording here, is to let people know those areas right now that we need to improve. The last thing I want to do is to help a could-be shooter to know that. But there are areas that we've identified right now that we need to tighten up on. Having an SRO in the buildings is just puts you to a whole nother level.
And I was going to bring up that whole thing with, the school resource officer not going in. You never know. It's not a guarantee, because every human's going to react differently when that takes place. You put trained medics in the military into a battle situation like that, they will freeze. Not everyone, but there are some. So
We've
it's not guaranteed.
had SROs in our buildings before, but my question is, how many, and now if we get 3 and you've got 1, so it will be through the village of Central Square, but since they're contracting with us, we can put them either in Brewerton or Cole.
The only thing that means, they can do all the same things even outside the village jurisdiction except make the actual arrest. They, at that point, would do everything, subdue the person, everything. It would be the local municipalities would then come over. And we do that right now, where the Cicero Police Department work great with our departments when they're out of their jurisdictions. But that would be the only thing. The ones in the high school would actually be able to make the full arrest, do the whole thing, processing everything. For respect of just the general public and the students in the rooms, there would be no difference. They could go and they do their PD, they could have a weapon in those buildings, and they're allowed to do that. We checked on that.
Yeah, 'cause to me, I think it's important that we address this so that everybody that's within the building feels safe. So whatever that is, I think we need to do. So whether it's a full-time resource officer in or whatever we're going to call it, in every single building, from opening doors to closed door, whether it's going to be at sporting events, whether it's going to be whatever that is, for people to feel, everybody within the building feels safe. And then to me, you're going to draw that back down. Whether, Brewerton, we do the same thing with the town of Cicero, so we can put somebody, the town of Cicero Police Department in a Brewerton thing. I mean, I think we could expand upon it, but I don't, picking out a couple schools, I don't know if my gut feel is that we got to have somebody in every school. That's my gut feel. Whatever that is, we'd have to go out and explore it, but you're just going to have to address it as far as what people feel safe.
And really,
we may be forced to.
Well,
This is coming down.
if you guys, so I was interviewed over the last break, and the reporter said, there was legislation that they're looking to try to get in where New York State would have to put one in every building. Would you favor that? I said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they put so much money into state testing, companies to do that, millions and millions of dollars. They put armed people for all of our judges and everything. And why shouldn't our teachers and students have the same thing? The competitive nature in me want to make sure we get the best. So right now, what we have going on in all these other school districts is the same conversations at their board meetings and the big push for the ones that don't currently have school resource officers to get them. The ones that do, Oswego, Phoenix, Mesco, you couldn't get rid of theirs. When I've asked them, like, oh my God, our students feel so comfortable. Let's say there was a basketball game, somebody came up, hey, so-and-such has such and such. They just feel comfortable if that school resource officer has that kind of relationship. And in Phoenix case, it is what I'm talking, the one that we want to do is that safety control officer. That's why I want to get rolling on this. So at the next board meeting, we'll have Officer McCarthy come in. On March 7th, Andy, myself, will be going to the village as we're doing an SRO workshop, telling them what we've got, some of the things that we want, having that conversation. Because the next step is that they say, yep, this is what we'll do. We want to support this. And then we want to post and be able to get the very best that we can. Because so many schools are going to be doing this. And there are so many that I know. I've already told a couple of my friends, sorry, you can't do it. That's complicated. I know you. I can't hire a friend of mine. But they're all like that. There are so many great school resource officers that have the years in, that want to be able to retire. Take something like this for $40,000. That's their dream. So I want to get the best.
In the past, if you remember, Laura, I think it's probably 6 years ago, we had one. They happened to be in that case troopers. Current.
She was. That was the grant.
That was the grant money. Correct. That's correct.
Yeah. And then they pulled them all out, and that's what I had said. It was in the Palladian Times. There was a time that they felt that was such an important thing, priority, that they put this grant money out there. When I say grant, it's like our Title I grant. We're not filling out grant people who just get it. And then they pulled all that money back, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, so whatever we're calling them, the school safety patrol ops, whatever it is, that's one component for the board and for anyone who's going to watch this. It's a much bigger conversation, right? And some of it which we should and will discuss as a board, but quite frankly, a lot of it we can't do in this setting. To talk about the procedures that are in place and that need to be changed and have that as public record would be self-defeating to the whole point of safety. So,
but to address the one person that did make the comment, I will say the administration here and the monitors do a really good job asking. We have the Raptor system. They make them. They have the pass. Every time our labor relations person comes in, he knows that he has to bring his ID. They scan it through, and they have that. I don't know of a situation that someone just walks in, and again, I don't want to shut up, after school, but we're always looking to tighten up. But the bottom line is they are, in our schools, one point of entry, and they do that. So I don't want someone to make a comment that I feel our people do a really, really good job of vetting who comes in the building and scanning it. So I don't want people to be worried about that.
No, I hear you, and I'm not, all I'm saying is, but that, it sounds as a district defensive, and I don't want to be defensive about this, because no matter what we're doing, we can do better.
Oh, no
And
doubt.
in light of what's happened, we have to, right? So, but one of the questions is, where do we move forward from here? Because clearly we can't just talk about it tonight and not talk about it. It's got to be ongoing, because it's a way bigger issue than one topic.
Well,
And yeah, if any of us, we aren't going to do a committee with board members, because 2 years we identified, everything we're involved in has to be, the public has to be allowed in. So I need Mr. Colbooth to be creative. If he wants one or two board members to participate in a work session, it has to be worded very carefully so that does not fall under open meeting laws. And yet, that's the way it has to be. It can't be open meeting.
No, I agree. And I've gotten great feedback. I've taken all the parent phone calls that want to call me and ask me this, and teachers. And I know that there is a company, Armored One, that's going to be presenting over at Phoenix, and I was invited to go over by Chris Byrne to listen to what they have to say. I know that there's this like film for glass, and if you think about it, really it's just one area in our building that I think that.
But that's the question. So that is one of probably 100 things that could be listed.
Sure.
Yeah, we could look at it. I just put.
But again, I don't want to go into too much detail that open up areas that.
I just put film on my federal building in Utica and Bennington within the last 4 months. So it wasn't a lot of money.
Was that through Armored One?
No, it's just through contractors. There's all kinds of security stuff. I mean, I'm involved with it every single day. But you're right, to your point. I mean, how are you going to secure the building? And then what steps are you going to do? Is it locking down as 100% keys to get in the pads and where you're going to, is the glass in the front going to be bulletproof? Is it going to be, I have it at my buildings. You've got to decide what level you want to go with, and then you got an action plan.
Right, to me, and I'm sure I'll get an agreement from Mr. McCarthy on this, but I'm not a fan of consultants and studies and all that, but this is an area where there is so much involved. I'm not sure how we do building condition studies and transportation studies and all those things. What do we do in this case to get a comprehensive review and make sure that we're doing everything we can within the budgetary constraints that we live with?
Well, what we do, and what we have done, and we continue to do, is we have the troopers. Again, they came through and walked in before the shoot, so it wasn't a reactionary thing. That they come through and they want to know, because they get new troopers, they want to know, okay, if something were to happen, this is how we would come in, this is where we would go. Some schools, like when I was at Oneida, they actually did, it was over the summer, but they had teachers and students that volunteered. They actually came in and did the drill, and it was intense, as if that was a real shooter coming in. So, to your point, I would love to have a company like Armored One, I think he's actually local here in Central Square, actually come in and say, okay, these are your vulnerabilities, these are the things that you can do, step one right away, whether it's the film, and putting the protective film up, again, looking at what we're doing to test us. I want to know if someone can just walk right into one of our buildings, because we don't want that. But again, when we do this, the community needs to know it's going to take you longer to get in. Because when we said we can't have just everybody roaming through at Halloween, and a lot of parents were upset because they've always been able to just come in and walk into classrooms and do whatever they want, wearing masks and whatnot, and we said it's for the safety of kids. But then all of a sudden when there's a school shooting, people are like, we can't have that. Well, we've been saying that for the longest time, that we need to tighten up, and we're going to continue to tighten up. And the community just needs to understand that will mean that there's going to be lines when you come in. Make sure that you have your ID ready, things like that, just like you would at the airport. You got to know there's going to be a line and a process, and that we need to do that because it's the safety of our kids. But I agree with you. I would like to have somebody come in like ASAP and run us through that.
So we have 2 or 3 weeks till our next meeting. 2. What's a time frame? Because ideally, I'm guessing the administration needs to come back and ask the board, actually the company that you asked for, if it's within your budget, but find a company or an organization, what are the next steps? How do we do this comprehensive review? Because it's.
But again, we would just do it. Again, we would just hire a company to come in and say, okay, That's exactly what Phoenix is doing right now with our.
So whatever that is, and again, I guess what I'm asking is, does the board have assurance that, whether it's done through a third-party company or whatever, there's going to be a complete review of all of our safety and security procedures, an action plan, a timeline, everything developed for that? I'm not saying present that at the next board meeting.
That would be tight for the next.
No, I'm not saying at the board meeting, but that's going to happen.
Yes.
We're not going to leave anything unturned. And then, at the same time, there's got to be a process by which we'll have to talk legally, I guess. So we'll need assurance, and the board needs to be updated on that, what the plan is, but we can't do that in a meeting like this. So you'll have to talk to legal help.
Right.
We'll have to talk.
I know the audience isn't supposed to talk, and I apologize, but what about your own district safety committee that you already have in place? Why not bring them into this?
Well, we do, and they're part of it, but again, they don't have the training of an actual police
No,
officer.
I'm not talking about asking them to be the people. I'm asking them to help you with some of the questions and answers and decisions that Mr. Martin was requesting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
And then as long as I'm talking, I won't shut up. One in every building, and I don't care what you raise my taxes to.
Agreed.
We got that on tape.
Sweet, you gotta pay her.
I don't care. I'm not kidding.
No,
I think we need more than that.
At least one in every building.
That's the thing, that there's so much to this issue.
Don't work.
We could put 4 in every building,
Make
that's
sure we
reality, and there are still other issues that need to be dealt with, and that's what we can't leave undone. So, all right.
Okay.
So
I
that,
think we just need a bunch of questions answered.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would like to just talk to the gentleman, lady, whoever it is. So I'm just getting comfortable.
Officer McCarthy, they call Max, it's all.
Yeah.
I'll make sure he's in
And can that also roll into closed door sessions?
that's what we have to
We have to
protect.
talk about this stuff behind closed doors, like it or not. There's gotta be some way to talk about this.
But isn't
It
there
does, but
a,
technically it doesn't.
so there's no safety, I thought the executive session had a safety.
Well, that's the thing, we're gonna have to get from our law firm what the wording is to do it, because listen, it's gonna happen. We just have to find the legal ways to do it. That's the problem.
Well, you can't get there from here without it happening, so it has to happen.
Yeah. Right.
And there has to be a provision for it to happen.
And I'll talk to
There can't not.
I'll talk to Bethany first thing in the morning, because that is an issue. The last thing I want to do is have it identified.
You're not gonna wanna talk tactics.
No.
There you go. So.
All right, so, Pearl, on unfinished business, it'll just be, safety and security, district-wide safety and security. And at the next meeting, we'll have an update from Officer McCarthy, hopefully. We'll also have an update, based on legal recommendations, behind closed doors, on what we can do. All right. Anything else, either on this topic or anything else open forum before we move on?
Well, and the one thing that I'm sure you guys have heard of is they're calling for that national walkout. It's not a secret, but they're saying, what's it, March 14th? That is a colossal worry to me, to put large amounts of students out in a public space for copycat people. So, not only that, but NISBA had come back and said, look, for those kids that walk out, you've got to treat that like you would at any time. People leave. Look, that's hard for me because I don't want to take the voices away from our students that want to take part in something that they feel strongly about, but at the same time, I also have to keep them safe. And if my child was in this high school right now, I worry about letting everybody know, and it's not me letting out a secret because it's on every social media site and whatnot, news, that it's going to be at 10 o'clock for 17 minutes. It's like telling everybody where these kids are going to be for that crazy person to then have access to them. Because you all know, if you watch that, the first thing that guy tried to do was pull the parlay to get everybody out. And so that's a concern to me. And so we're talking as a county on to the other superintendents, what are we all doing with that? I want to have conversations with our student government to say, guys, I don't want to limit your voice, but I also don't want to put you in a situation that you could be a target.
Can we offer them a venue inside the school?
Yes, that's something that we're talking about, absolutely. Where that venue is, I don't want to say it.
just to end on a good note, instead of all the scary stuff, I saw where we had superintendent referrals for good things. I thought it was a fantastic idea that was on Twitter, so that might lead into
And I don't take credit, that's the chamber that I was talking about.
Yeah.
That they donated all those prizes, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, it was on Twitter, I think, and it was just, instead of going to the superintendent's office or doing something wrong, if somebody's a teacher, somebody sees something, the student does something right.
Oh, no, so that's something totally different, right? That's something that our high school and our middle school do, that they reward the kids for their positive behavior.
So you get a referral to the superintendent's office to describe what good things they've done.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So not just all the bad ones going to see, but you're getting kind of tired of that, I can see. So let's see the good ones, so.
All right, great discussion. All right, so Pearl, we can, after the fact, there's a lot of ads and deletions in this, so we can make that list. Ray, anything you want to, it doesn't have to be on the topic we were on, anything you want to add to?
Yeah, just really quick, everybody got one of these. It's just for our March 9th Leadership Conference that we just wanted to invite you guys all to attend. We have a bunch of schools from a whole bunch of different districts that attend, and we do leadership workshops, and we have really good guest speakers, so it's just an invitation for you guys all to come.
Yeah, all the other superintendents praise these guys for what they put together. So if you are around, you have an opportunity, you want to come to it, it is amazing what it's all student driven.
Thank you. All right, that being the end of the reports and open forum, we're going to move to action items. Can I get a motion to accept? Oh, I always skip it.
It's good.
Congratulations to the members of the cast, chorus, crew, and pit band for an outstanding production of the Broadway musical Bye Bye Birdie. I was there. I loved it. Every year I'm amazed at how talented our students are and how awesome our staff is putting on such a great show. Joe Weaver broke his own Section 3 indoor pole vault. He got tired of beating everybody else. He just beat himself. 4 feet, 7.25 inches, which is a record. He jumped 50. That's what I said.
You said 4, yeah.
4. All right. All right. Go back and rewind 10 seconds. All right. 14 feet, 7.25 inches, record. It's a record. He jumped 15 feet and then cleared the 15 feet 3 inches. Great job, Joe. The Central Square High School winter drumline performed well in competition at North Syracuse, placing 3rd in their class. The Central Square Novice Guard performed and placed 2nd in competition. The Central Square Junior Varsity took placed 1st in competition, and the Varsity Winter Guard placed 1st in competition over 3 guards. This coming weekend, Cole Wilson and Jared King will be traveling to the New York State Band Directors Association Honors Festival in Liverpool to rehearse and perform with students from all over the state who based on their NISMA, which is, it's a huge deal. You want me to say what it means, right? The New York State, I know, I was just going to, thank you. Solo scores and earned a seat in the NYSBDA. New
York State Band Directors Association.
Thank you. Honors band. That is awesome. I do want to also say, because it just happened, so our basketball team, boys basketball team, it was a pleasure watching them. Such an amazing season. It stopped yesterday at SRC Arena. They played their hearts out. What I just want to say, and especially because they may be watching this, they may be, and I think they tweet me on different things to the student athletes, but it's just the level of respect that these students have. So even so sometimes, as the crowd might get a little agitated on a bad call, it's those players who are always saying to the crowd, no, it's okay. They have just so much composure and class. And I just want to say kudos to the coaches. And again, that's the whole basketball program, that's boys and girls. That's really all of our sports. I say this because basketball in general, right now, specifically because when I watched them yesterday, I had friends that were also at the game commenting to say how classy those players were. And I think that's a testament to their families. And again, I think sometimes we get consumed with those kids that are suspended and this. We have so many great kids from great families in this district. And I just wanted to end my superintendent report with that.
And with that, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
To accept item F, which is the approval of 23 district policies. This is the second reading, so assuming they pass, these will be our new policies. Mr. McCarthy made the motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Patch. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And all kidding aside, thank you, Aaron, and the policy committee. You guys have been doing a ton of work, so often unappreciated.
I'll make a motion to accept F2.
F2, which is to establish July 2nd as our date for our annual organizational meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
And Mr. Loy, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion for F3, approval of the school district
I'll make a
instructional
motion
channel.
to accept F3.
I will second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept F4, the approval for the Oswego County Highway Department municipal agreement.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Ms. Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? I'm sorry, I knew it. You're good.
Make the motion to accept G1, acceptance of recommendations from the Committee on Special Education, the Preschool Committee on Special Education.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion? All those in favor? And I will make a motion that we accept item H in its entirety. Can I get a second? Second. Who was that? Mr. Loy. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. All right. At 9:39, I make a motion that the Central School District Board of Education hereby move into executive session to discuss negotiations conducted pursuant to the Taylor Law involving all of our unions except the CSTA, to discuss matters leading to the discipline of a particular person, and to provide our superintendent his mid-year feedback. Second.
I'll second.
What?
I'd like a recommendation that if possible, we hold on Tom's, or we have to have it by time.
We have to, yeah, we already delayed. Here, so
I'm gonna wait and see if I bring the copy.
any discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor? Sorry, no action to follow on that, so staff is good to go.
Thank you for everybody that came today.